benefit enthusiasts about the Hex product. So, understand that most of this kind of content that you're getting a feed about, whether it's Twitter or YouTube content or, commentary made in passion when trying to explain to potentially hundreds of thousands of people about Hex and what's going on, is some of this can be taken out of context. There's always going to be voice clip little snippets that say, hey, this doesn't align or this isn't congruent with what has been said in the past or by some other person in a similar position. And the big point is what RG3 said earlier. Richard has always said, if you want something, you do it. You are the one that draws your pony picture. This is an asset class of code. And if you interact with the code itself, this is what it does. So, he's had a pretty strong, not just personal opinion about how to deal with things as a founder of code or launch of code. He's also had, different jurisdictions and different legal opinions and things like that fed to him over the years of being experienced in business and experienced in cryptocurrencies. So some of it we take upon ourselves as individuals, whether it's a leadership position and say, hey, I think that the community needs leadership. I think the community needs voice. And many of us try to be that voice. But if someone else wants to step up to the mic, then they're always welcome to. That's the whole beauty of a DeFi product inside of a decentralized community. We come from all different backgrounds. We come from all different experiences and cultures. And we tend to filter out the words that we don't understand and focus on the ones that we do understand in different contexts. So that's the big point is, what RG3 is able to share with you guys. I think that the big thing that frustrates some that have made some commentary is maybe there's commingling of funding, or maybe there's commingling of goals set that legal representation is putting out there. And if there's something along the lines of, here is a read-only vlog, public website or something like that anybody can review at any time and say, this is what's going on. This is the action step. This is where we are in the process. I think that kind of transparency about what actually is the set goal by the legal firm representing whatever the goal may be, that's the big thing is transparency. As much transparency that can be provided by the legal firm themselves about what the goal is when you're saying it's a declarative letter or a determination before there's documentations that are just fishing expedition style fed over to agencies. It's not about non-compliance. It is about compliance, and it is about justification in the legal system of legacy versus the system of code. So that's really what I think I see the turbulence being from different people inside of the Hex community or voices in the Hex community. Is there transparency? And if there is transparency, what is the actual goal set? Another thing that I want to say before I find a quieter place is, if you choose to donate, if you choose to fund, it doesn't matter whether it's this particular ETH address or any other address that you find on the internet. Understand that it is a donation if it's a donation that you're making. And understand also that there are other mechanisms to support such a cause if you choose to. Maybe there's GoFundMe that can be provided. Maybe there's more transparency about, required, of course, that it's KYC or AML or any of those kinds of things if you're going to use legacy systems to fund something like this, a legal defense fund or something along those lines. If you understand what that purpose of the Treasury or the purpose of the funding would be, then, of course, in my opinion, there should be transparency of where the expense was really put or where those funds were actually put. And usually that should be done by a legal firm. That should be done by a law firm and say, here's what was spent. Here are the number of hours put to the cause that you donate to or support. And also, I tend to believe in these economic times that if you don't have active cash flow from things that have nothing to do from cryptocurrencies in a volatile world of speculation, you probably shouldn't be funding it at all. Like, I do think that we pull along a lot of people that don't put voice or face or effort themselves, and they speculate on cryptocurrencies just like gambling. And maybe those people aren't ever going to step up to the plate when it comes to either funding something or being a voice of leadership. But if you are in a position where you can, throw some kind of support, whether it's your own voice or by proxy, supporting others that have voice, then why not? Like, that's my opinion. I don't want the little guy saying, man, I've got nothing but X amount of dollars, and I'm nervous about the future of my family, in a recession, or if you have a lot of concerns financially, probably shouldn't be in this fight. Like, there's plenty of other things that you should be shoring up. I think that's the point that Steph was making last night, or at least 7 or 8 hours ago, was bear market opportunity versus speculation over a legal defense funding or something like that. So just look look toward either stepping up to the plate and saying, this is a cause I want to support, or look toward supporting your own investment thesis, whatever that might be. That's kind of the points I have to make about it. But I'm going to find a quieter space before I contribute more.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.
Yeah, RG3, man, I just want to say thank you for spearheading this. I've been watching your content since I've been in the Hex community. I love it, and I love to see somebody actually taking this on. I would love to hear you speak, though, a little bit more about why the attorneys think we have such grounds to stand on, why we have such a strong case. Obviously, we hear Richard all the time talk about the Howey test, and we all believe it's not a security. But, I think it'd help kill some of the FUD if you would talk a little about what the attorneys are thinking and what grounds we actually have to stand on.
Yeah, so there are a few things that give us precedents and legal opinion that support our case and our side of this story here. I think that as we're looking at this, first of all, in order to find out our strategy, we need to see why this was brought to the SEC's attention. Was there a complaint logged? Because of the Freedom of Information Act, we're going to get that information. So we're going to understand where this came from soon. Then once we figure that out, we'll understand if the SEC was actually doing an investigation for whatever reason they had, or maybe it was just a community member or somebody who wanted to complain or has something against Richard, maybe bought at the top and is now sitting 90% wrecked, and the sour grapes or whatever. So we're going to find out first that. But a few things that make us feel that we stand on real good, solid ground. One of the things that I have that isn't public information is I have the illegal opinion memorandum that was given to us when we started the Hex Investment Trust. And the legal opinion memorandum is wrote by a couple different law offices, and it's two different legal opinions on why Hex is not a security, and how it passes all the tests, and how it actually also passes the same test that Ethereum passed, or closely resembles it. So we have that. We have the Hex Investment Trust itself. As I said, it's not the end all be all, but it's a very good leg to stand on. We went through scrutiny putting that together. It took us a year to write that. My hat's off to Wales and Kinetics for doing so. They worked tirelessly for hours and hours and hours to put that thing together. And it may be one of Hex's best defenses when it comes to not being a security because of what they've done. So there's that. There's the legal opinion. And there's hours and hours and hours of Richard educating all of us and the public as far as why Hex is not a security. So there's a lot of good standing there to take the fight actually to litigation, so that it can be I have trouble finding the words, but be declared by whatever it is, the courts or the SEC, as not being a security. So that's why we feel solid about it, and we know that we would have taken it to the hoop ourselves, but these things take a long time, and they take a lot of legal hours to get this done. And I mean, literally, I can't say how much I've spent, but the Hex Investment Trust itself, the lawyers that actually helped put Grayscale together were also our lawyers. So we spent a lot of money putting that together. A crap ton, an ass load of money, insane amounts of money. And some of that money was spent on hours that I literally had to sit down with some of the lawyers and educate them about Hex, because they understood Bitcoin and they understood how to build the Bitcoin trust and what they did there. But they didn't understand T-shares, and they didn't understand Hex, and they didn't understand the staking mechanisms. So we had to pay lawyers. For those of you who don't know, lawyers charge you by the hour just to talk to them. So we literally had to pay these lawyers to teach them about Hex. So anyway, I digress, but we've spent an awful lot of money. We know how long these things take. And we thought that this is not just our responsibility. This is the community's responsibility to take this to the hoop. And I want to give everybody the opportunity to be involved in it, and not pay for the whole thing myself. Richard wouldn't do it, and neither should I. So I think that, am I going to contribute? Hell yes. I've always contributed. I've constantly contributed. I made a fucking movie. I streamed and spit out my spleen for 3 years. I built the Hex Investment Trust. I built MCA, products outside of Hex that didn't ask for your money, that didn't ask to sacrifice anything or do any of that stuff. So yeah, so I think I've given enough, and I think that the community should give too. So I'm not begging for money. I'm saying that this is a fight that we should take up, and we should all feel proud in going and participating in. So I don't want to take that away from the Hexkins. You guys should be involved in this. And again, like Gary said, it's not for everybody. I'm not saying everybody should pony up. I know that some of you out there are hurting right now. I get it. I know we're in a bear market, and some of you guys got in at 30, 40, 50 cents. I fucking feel that. I do. One of my good buddies put a lot of his life savings into it, and you see him in the movie at the 40, 45 cent mark. I don't feel good about that. It's hard, but I know that it's going to change. I know that the next bull run is going to change all that for a lot of people. But I do sympathize, and I do empathize, and I do understand where some of you are. And I'm not asking those people to stretch even further. For those that can, for those that really feel passionate about this, I think you should get involved. I think this is a worthy cause, and I think this is something that is going to be good for all of us. Pump all of our bags, and vindicate what I believe to be the greatest asset that's ever been created. I think that it deserves this chance, and the community is the one that has to do it. And it's not just me. It's not just Kinetics. It's not just Hexo. It's not just Gary. It's all of us. We should all be contributing to this.
Also, guys.
Gary, do you have to be American to contribute?
No. There's an Ethereum address. I'll post it here. Gosh, I don't know if I know anybody who knows how to post on this.
I got it.
All right. Yeah, it's Kinetics has it up on his Twitter there. You can pull it up. It's all transparent. The way that has to happen, just to let everybody know, the lawyer asked us, no funds can directly go to the lawyer. They have to be gathered and collected into a legal defense fund, which is that address is registered as our legal defense fund. And then that fund is going to transfer the money eventually to a bank that goes to pay for the legal workings around this project.
I wanted to comment a little bit about that. So again, hesitancy, and I don't think that it should be declared unless the lawyer themselves or the firm actually makes their own declaration about who their clients are, because there's always caution about that. We don't want trolling. We don't want, basically just spamming and things like that. So until RG3, Kinetics, or any other client, I'm not myself a client. So there's some things I do know, but I can't comment about just out of pragmatic caution in general. So until you hear something directly from RG3, from Kinetics or Hexo or something along those lines, do not consider that they're, someone randomly posting an Ethereum address and saying that they're somehow related, or they're going to, do their own fundraise to later send over to the lawyers or some other cause. Be very cautious about anything that doesn't come from quote unquote official, loud speaking, such as RG3 or Kinetics or Hexo, and even myself. Like, there's so much spoof out there and so much fakery, so be very cautious.
Yep.
The other thing is, as far as the fund idea, I've seen initially months ago, someone comes up with a letter, and then the letter has a response, such as, maybe it's fake, maybe that's not real. Look, this font doesn't match previous letters that have come out from the SEC. And people like Eric or other people say, no, it's probably authentic, when we really just don't have any verification. So what I do like about this action and the leadership that RG3 and Kinetics and Hexo have put it to this task is an official law firm that has a lot of experience. I mean, just a ton of experience. When or if that's revealed by RG3 or Kinetics who the firm is, you're going to feel more confident, in my opinion, that kind of funnel and interaction with the 3-letter agency or 4-letter agencies is representing effectively the Hex product. So I like that a lot. And I like the reasonable caution that most lawyers deal with. I've dealt with lawyers a lot of my life. And even inside of cryptocurrency, some people have heard my story in the past from 2017. And, it's tedious and it's time consuming and it's stressful and it's anxious as a client and as a provider. If your profession is based on giving sound legal advice to clients, you're on the hook too. Your career, your future, and things like that, your license to practice law is at risk for malpractice, right? So keep that in mind. There are others that may have received letters that may have decided that they're going to go their own path, their own choices, and their own preference about whom, if anybody, represents them. Just keep in mind that there may be less than everyone that gets an SEC letter that works with this particular retainer. Keep that in mind. And be cautious, be reasonably cautious about what you support, who you support. And I tend to think, even though this is DeFi, even though this is a community that has social bridging between each other, and we may have different reasons about why we're involved with cryptocurrency as a whole. Some are here to get rich. Some people are trying to have a commodity that somehow has influence over government. Some people believe very strongly in freedom of speech, and blockchain is speech. There's all kinds of causes that we may be trying to support with our own efforts and finance, or capital, social capital, or whatever kind of capital. So keep that in mind. But I do like a legal firm that basically can have a unified approach with 3-letter agencies. I prefer that instead of individuals. And even when you're making tweets, even when you're making Telegram noise, even when you're making YouTube content, please be prudent and be cautious and let the legal process in the legacy world deal with this. It's my call. I think it's better that we're unified than divided. I think that there's more benefit to cryptocurrency as a whole, not just Bitcoin, which is not a security according to the SEC, Ethereum, that's not a security according to the SEC, at least in its first iteration. And all of the effort that went into the game theory and development of the Hex product, that it shouldn't be considered a security either. So when you're looking at this as a investment, as a freedom of speech, support, whatever reason that you're in the Hex community or you like to talk about as an enthusiast the product of Hex, keep that in mind. Like, what is the value to your freedoms? What is the value to your bank account? What is the value to your options when it comes to the product of Hex? What is that value? And support or detract from the Hex community as you choose to.
Thanks, Gary.
RG3, is there an avenue for people who might be kind of more knowledgeable about legal things and whatnot to help you out, the people that are in the community?
Uh,
And because I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I wouldn't want to have to run with something like this myself. You know what I mean?
well, we're absolutely depending on the community. Now, like Gary said, once it's revealed the source of our representation here, I think everybody's going to be pretty excited about it. Pedigree, extreme pedigree when it comes to the area of expertise in which this is operating in. But any insight, for instance, Tic Tac it's kind of her hobby. That's what she does. She goes out there and um, reads legal opinions and whatnot. So hats off to her. Not my cup of tea. There's no way in hell I would be able to do that and stay awake. I can only get through a sentence of a good book, let alone something like this. But um, any help, any suggestions, anything that anybody sees in between any lines, anywhere, any legal precedent, of course, please bring it to our attention. DM us, myself, Kinetics, Gary, Pexo, anybody, let us know what you found if you've got a suggestion, and we'll definitely take it to our meetings when we do sit down with the attorney. And just to, as people are already commenting, I know a lot of the questions are, hey, nobody understands what this declaratory statement is or where it's coming from or who offers it or issues it. Remember, this was just a conversation that we had with our legal counsel once already. So we're going to have many more meetings. Now we have questions to go to him with to clarify some of these things so that we will have the right vernacular and be able to post more informational more informational posts as we move forward to clear up some of these things so that everybody understands exactly what we're talking about, where we're going, so that we'll have a better idea of where this stands. So yes, long version of the answer to your question. We definitely want everybody's input. This is a community effort, so yeah, let's get that.
So the guys that are doing Coast said that they've done a lot of legal stuff. But yeah, I know somebody in this community is gonna have some sort of strong legal background, and I think it'd be great if people like that can step up to the plate to assist. Even just make sure we're getting second opinions on stuff like this. Like I've dealt with a lot of lawyers before, and some of them just love doing anything that's going to make them money, right? And then other ones will tell you, no, actually, this is steering you down a bad path. You probably don't want to do this, even though that costs them money by telling you that. I don't know, things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, we totally understand that. Yep.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, KG. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good, bro. How are you?
Good, man. Can't complain. What's going on?
So, I'm sure you already have a great legal team, but I just wanted to throw this out there in case you needed more resources. Part of our legal team, they actually reside in Washington, D.C., and they specialize in SEC law. And one of our members of our legal team worked with Commissioner Hester Peirce, who's currently one of 5 SEC commissioners. He worked directly with her. And so, I can connect you with them if you think that would be beneficial. And also, just taking it one step further, Hester Peirce was actually doing a tour through Houston, and I'm from Texas, so I was actually fortunate enough. Don and I were able to sit down and have like an hour and a half meeting with her, and we didn't talk specifics of anything, but just got her general sentiment of crypto and how she feels about the space. And I believe she's a true advocate for crypto innovation. Her stance is, let's come up with regulation that doesn't stifle innovation and allows builders to build without having to look over their shoulder at every turn. And I bring that up to say, Like, I do have an email communication with her, and maybe, she doesn't respond every time, but, she's a busy woman. My point is, if you think that could be helpful, I could try to open that door of communication as well.
By all means, yeah, DM me, and we can get our councils, in communications, and that may help here down the road. Appreciate it, man.
That's an excellent point, and it is about what can most of the things that make investors or people in times of chaos most fearful is uncertainty. It's like, what is going on? What can I do? What's my action step? What's my call to action? And if you actually do have network, and I'm not just talking about you Googled something, you find an email address, and then you start spamming up RG3 or Kinetics or myself. I don't need cold contact referrals. None of us actually do. We actually have pretty good contacts ourselves that probably are very similar to what you could find on the internet. But if you have had a warm introduction and you do know someone on a first name basis, or even if it's only an hour meeting or something like that, you may have had for development of your own business product or whatever it may be, right? I think that that's useful. I think that if it does get funneled basically to someone that has been a leader in the space for years on end, such as RG3, maybe that's worthwhile to funnel to their legal representation. And, again, if it comes out later in the future by RG3 or Kinetics as official, and also by their legal representatives, that they have amazing contacts, they have amazing referrals, but every little bit helps. Every warm relationship helps. If you're calling yourself a hexagon, or you're calling yourself a cryptocurrency advocate, or whatever, or speculator, or whatever it is, the power of the product is only as strong as the power of the community that supports it. So it doesn't matter whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, XRP, or whatever it is, they have value in a marketplace because of their communities. And part of that is our network. So yeah, if I try to bridge to a lot of different people in a lot of different asset classes or a lot of different spokespeople. And, every little bit helps. Every little bridge tread helps. So yeah, that's an amazing call to action.
Yep.
Does anyone have any concerns regarding pulse chain? Like, do you think the SEC has a plausible argument to say this was done in a similar fashion to an ICO? We're going to press the court to say maybe the sacrifice in exchange for freedom of speech is too similar. What are your thoughts on that, RG?
Well, my thoughts don't matter much, I guess, but it's and it is just my opinion. We all know what opinions are. I think that it. So when I think about it, I go, well, they may want to come at this because it does sound like a weak kind of argument, like a shell game almost. Yeah, give us this for that, and you'll get this maybe, but it's really in the name of free speech. I think Richard is smarter than that. I'd like to think he is, and did his research and knows what he did with it. And somehow, some way, he's got that worked out. So that's to be seen, and that's basically my opinion. Is I think Richard knew what he was doing when he did it. I think he seeked out legal counsel, and maybe they had a strategy as to why they did it. Now, personally, like I said, I look at it myself and go, well, that's kind of like a straw house, right? But I could be wrong, and so yeah, that's my opinion on it. But if there is a weak link that I see anywhere, it's the sacrifice phases. But again, I'm not an expert. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that some of that's going to have to come out in legal process about Hex, the product. because a lot of what was quote unquote sacrificed for freedom of speech, freedom of movement, or whatever, a lot of that actually was hex. Like there were other cryptocurrencies that were represented the pool in general, and it's always been framed as, you know, you're supporting freedom of movement, freedom of speech, you know, donate to sins because you want to live, whatever it may have been. And people did act as they chose to. Some, you know, I actually don't like when I see on Twitter, you know, hey, you didn't know what a sacrifice meant, you know, and I've done it in the past as well, but I do it less often now myself. And so when it came to other products that or projects or promises in the cryptocurrency space over the years that have had some kind of interaction with the SEC later, if the product actually had released or the project had released, such as EOS, then there's a fine to be paid and continue business as usual. If there was any other kind of Ethereum was considered a security for a while, and I don't think that they paid a fine because it had been decentralized later on after it actually got reviewed by the SEC. But it said it's no longer a security. So some of these things are a little bit they vacillate a bit, you know, as far as what does the SEC call a cryptocurrency? Is it a currency? Is it an asset? What is it? Like that labeling, government's always going to lag behind business and innovation in general. So some of this, I don't think will happen as far as a determination by the SEC if there was an unregistered security fundraise until something actually launches. Until Pulse Chain exists as an L1 or until PulseX exists as a DEX, I don't think you're going to get any clear definition about whether it bent rules or whether it complied or whether it was an action. That's congruent with other business launches or decentralized business launches in the crypto space. So I don't think that that's really the cause of a lot of this inquiry. I think that right now, Hex is the priority. It is the commodity or it is the security. Like, what is it needs to be determined. And, you know, the best people to interact in that way is not necessarily community directly with agency. In my opinion, it should be legal representatives that know the actual context of law.
Yes, 100.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that funding, Jim, right? Everything or anything that any one of us is going to say is, in a lot of ways, pure speculation. But my pure speculation is the securities declarations, it's already gray territory, right? The waters are murky because cryptocurrency is already murky by nature. And so there are two different facets here. There is Hex, which, okay, if it's deemed a security, what? Are they going to stop the code on the blockchain? Okay, they're going to infiltrate the Ethereum Foundation and cause them to do some shady stuff on the chain? I mean, what happens if Hex is a security? Number one. Number two is Pulse Chain. The SEC claims that they want to protect investors. If the SEC wants to protect investors, it is in the SEC's best interest to allow Pulse Chain to launch. Because if they stifle and stop Pulse Chain from launching, they don't hurt Richard. They don't hurt the Pulse Chain team. They hurt everybody that has sacrificed for Pulse Chain. So from the SEC's perspective, in my opinion, it is in the investors, quote, sacrificers, best interest for Pulse Chain to come out.
And that's a line item in the legal opinion called I think it's called I might be wrong pronouncing it, the Hinman standard. I think that's kind of what you're getting at.
Right. And again, we work with the legal team. So part of my opinions are what I have taken as interpretation from the legal opinions that we've received, but I am not a lawyer myself. So want to make that disclaimer very clear.
Yeah, if you think about the purpose of SEC, the purpose of SEC, even Richard has espoused, is basically to protect, the novice or the noob in the investing realm. And if you're saying, $50 from the taxi driver that, doesn't have abundant resources, and can be harmed by such a speculation or purchase or whatever, and it's their mandate basically to do so. Now, when it comes to the value of the hex product or the code, or whether you say something is a FOMO opportunity or whether it's a FUD opportunity, right? Like I said earlier, turbulence and uncertainty is where chaos comes from. And when people say things in investing and they say, wait until there's blood in the streets, these are those kinds of opportunities, if you want to call it an opportunity, because you don't have certainty. And think about other things that you might speculate on or invest in. Real estate. Maybe you buy something, you build a house on it, you develop your family and such inside that house, and then there is government agency or something along those lines that takes away that property, or basically says force majeure that you have to give up that property for the betterment of a society. That speculation may not have paid off for you. The same sort of thing when it comes to stock. If you are in the stock market and you say, hey, I really believe in Tesla, but boy, wouldn't it have been great to have bought Tesla before it was on the stock market because I knew Elon Musk and we used to be neighbors, right? So in the United States, at least, the SEC is supposed to be saying, their mandate is to say that someone is reasonably sophisticated, and I think it's a terrible litmus test, but it is what it is, that you have to have $200,000 worth of income per year, or I think $1 million worth of assets that are not your primary residence. If you have one of those two things, then you can get a letter from your lawyer or your CPA and call yourself an accredited investor. It's interesting because I was just in a tweet conversation with Mario Narfal, who's been hosting a lot of these Twitter spaces. And he was saying, hey, man, we invest also as VCs, and we have to go down with the market too. That's not true, because he was commenting that they have SAFT agreements, which is basically for future tokens. It's basically an agreement to get future tokens. And those agreements are constructed in law, not in code, and they're not enforced by math. They're enforced by social capital that's lost if you sell earlier than your SAFT agreement. It may be better to pay the legal fine in order to make profit, and many VCs do that, both in tech world of Silicon Valley agreements or in this crypto space, right? So what I'm getting at is, if you're looking at the product of Hex or the speculation of what Pulse Chain or PulseX might be in the future, consider that. Do you want accredited investor status? And if you can't achieve accredited investor status, then what I was saying was you could buy stocks through a proxy. So you're not an accredited investor. You can't invest in Uber before it goes to the stock market. You have to have that status. Well, after the fact, once it is IPO, once there is a ticker that's available on these legacy platforms, do people buy Tesla anyway? Yes. Do they buy it without an accredited status? Yes. How do they do that? They do that through a proxy. What is the proxy? It may be your stockbroker. Well, there are other things that also, through proxy, can buy cryptocurrencies, one of which are these kinds of trusts. Whether you like the Grayscale Trust or not, whether you like the Hex Investment Trust or not, options for people that are not accredited status to participate in the volatility of a crypto asset. So consider also that I've said this recently in my tweets, since I've been traveling a lot through Asia recently, is 95% of the population of the planet is not in America. Only 330 million of us, maybe 100 million as adults, that could potentially put financial energy into any speculation. And it's such a small smattering of the wealth of the planet. If you believe in DeFi, then maybe people that don't speak English and don't live in America also have financial impact. So consider, what is this product to you? What does Hex represent to you? What is this code of you being able to draw your own pony picture and sell it into the marketplace? What is that value? Whether you're an accredited investor or you're not, like consider those things in any speculation.
All right. Sorry, I didn't catch the end of that, Gary. Did anybody else have any other questions? I see some people came up here. Maddie?
Go ahead, famous.
I'm going to step down so that I can hear, but I would encourage anybody to retweet this. I know it's not like recorded on Twitter Spaces, but I think that right now there's 167 people listening to this live. And that's great, but obviously there's more than 167 people that would benefit from the knowledge. So if you have opportunity to disseminate this or record it or distribute it or make comment now on this AMA, I encourage you to do so. I'm going to step down, but I'll be listening. Thanks.
Thanks, Gary.
Hey, RG, I have one other question.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, if you wouldn't mind just waiting. Sorry, Famous had his hand up, and he was.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see his hand.
All good. Yeah, just quickly, did we have any idea from the lawyers what we're looking at as sort of like a worst case scenario? I was hearing Richard today talking to BitBoy, and he made the point that the SEC is non-criminal, and I'm thinking that what that means usually is even when this goes completely pear-shaped, you're looking at a fine of some sort. But I don't know that to be the fact. I'm more asking that question. And then the next, hold on. And then the second part of it is, he pointed out with the SBF thing, that's probably the SEC is not the way to go. It's to go prove all the fraud that was done, all the financial fraud, moving the money, all that stuff, which to me also sounds dead right. And I'm just thinking we're not going to see anything like that here, like because we all know there was nothing, like there was no money being given to any of us by anybody for this sort of thing.
Let me clarify something here. This has absolutely nothing to do with any of the personal subpoenas. This has absolutely nothing to do with any of the subpoenas that my companies or entities received. Those are all being handled personally. Those are not what this is about. This is about taking the evidence that we have, the representation that we've been offered, and going to the SEC with the proof that we have so far, with the Hex Investment Trust being created, with the legal opinion that has been wrote, that has already been submitted to the SEC for not necessarily approval, but the process that the PPM and all of our scrutiny, basically KYC of all of us that are involved, is required in order to create the Hex Investment Trust. With all the evidence that we have and the people that we have that are looking at this, this is strictly about going to the SEC and having a court of law look at all this evidence and say, Hex is not a security and we want that declaration. That's what this is about. This has absolutely nothing to do with the SEC's scrutiny of us personally. This legal defense fund is not for that. It's not part of that. This is completely separate. This is something different. I want to make sure that that's clarified and that people understand that this isn't about my personal representation. This is about representation for the Hex community to go out to the SEC and ask for this for Hex, for Hex's sake, and for all of our sakes. Somebody else requested.
Yeah, if I'm not interrupting anybody, I'd also like to say something. Can y'all hear me still?
Yeah, go ahead, KG.
Cool.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So to Famous's point, and again, just taking the information that I've come to know and believe and propagating an opinion, what this all comes down to is Section 5 of the SEC regulations. And it comes down to a sale of an unregistered security. And there are a few outcomes that can be imposed as penalties. Outcome number one, you have to refund everybody their money, or at least offer to have the money refunded to everybody. Outcome number two, there is a cease and desist. Outcome number three is you have to go through the registration of being a security. Outcome number four, which when outcome number three happens, a fine is also usually imposed with that. And outcome number four, I believe they can just. I don't even think, and I believe they can just hit you with a hefty fine. I'm not sure about outcome number four, but the other three outcomes I know are the potentialities of what can happen.
So two is not possible. One's really not, doesn't really make any sense. Like, it doesn't really work either. And three seems like the only option. So worst case scenario, we're looking at some sort of fine and we move on with our lives. That's okay. I've been fined before.
Well, that's the thing about number one is like, okay, let's say they tried to apply the, and number one being returning the funds. Let's say they applied that. That obviously, or most likely, wouldn't apply to Hex, but it could possibly potentially apply to Pulse Chain. But then the
Yeah.
question becomes very sticky of, okay, it's not people anymore, it's wallet addresses and it's crypto assets. So do you
Yeah.
refund a one-to-one? Like if they sent me one ETH, do I refund one ETH? Do I refund market value? Also, it's like,
Yeah, but KG, I want
go,
to take a step back here real
yes, sir.
quick
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
and realize that this is about Hex, period. We're not talking about Pulse, PulseX, the sacrifice phases, all those things. I answered that question earlier, but I want everyone to understand that this is strictly about Hex itself. And the reason for bringing this up is that in all of the subpoenas that have gone out, in their investigation that they are claiming that they're doing, Hex was named in it. I'm not saying that this has anything to do with Pulse and PulseX because we can only, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? Hex right now is defensible. Hex has the best legs to stand on with all this. So all the other stuff right now is kind of like back burner. We need to go after them for Hex and keep it focused on that because we can get in a big, conundrum trying to bring everything else into it. But this is strictly about Hex. And I think I'm sorry, bro, but trade mode, you had your hand up.
Yeah, hey, what's going on? I think he answered my question. I just, I don't know a lot about the SEC. I was just wondering, like, what they could actually do to the code. I mean, even if they did, succeed in this, it seems like if they don't do criminal investigations, the most we're looking at is a fine, like Famous said. But what can they
So
actually do?
again,
Can they do anything to the actual code?
they're not coming after. They've named Hex in their investigation, but we don't know if they're coming after Hex. We don't know yet until the Freedom of Information Act gives us more info on what it is exactly they're trying to do. So we got to realize that this is us going at them and asking them for something,
right?
Because they've named Hex, and by naming Hex, that puts all of us in a position to go after them and say, hey, wait a second, you're doing damage to all of us as a community because we're invested in this. Right. So we want you to either say why you're going after it, or say that it's a security, or go after it as a security, or say that it's not, because we have all the evidence to the contrary.
Right. No, I get all that. I guess my question is just like, what can they, like, let's just say they say, fuck y'all, and this is a security. What happens to the code? What happens to the code?
Nothing. They can't do anything to the code. Code exists and they can't touch the code. It's just like Bitcoin. They can't change it. They can't stop it.
So then what actually would happen then?
Well, the only thing they could do is levy fine on whoever they think they can levy fine on. Okay. And that's all that the civil case does. It's not criminal court. This isn't criminal case law. This is civil case.
Right, right. So it
And
would just be a one-time fine and then move on.
well,
Essentially?
you never know what they're going to do, and to speak of things like that is giving courts. So like, let's just say we as a community all start yelling and screaming, they're not going to do anything. They only did this to EOS. They're only going to do that to us. We can keep doing what we want. A judge doesn't have to go by precedent. A judge can go, you know what? You guys knew, the community knew, you guys continued to promote this thing, and we're not going to slap you on the hand like we slapped them on the hand. We're slapping you double hard because you knew better. So we've got to be very careful about our vernacular and how we speak about this. For instance,
Right.
look at the library case. Library got hit hard. Library was out there wearing shirts that said "fuck the SEC" on it. Not a smart thing to do when you're going into courtrooms and stuff like that, because it changes opinion of you. When you go in there and you go in there with confidence, you go in there with structure, and you go in there with legal opinions, and you go in there with the law on your side, and with integrity, then you have a better leg to stand on than going with your middle fingers up into the face of the authorities. That doesn't sit well. They can do whatever they want. They don't have to go lenient on you. But if you do have case and you do have precedent, then you may fare better if you act accordingly. Also, let me bring Freddie up. Freddie, what's happening?
Appreciate your answer.
Thanks for having me, RG. The one thing that gets me, bro, is that if we get the declarative statement, it completely nullifies all of the subpoenas, correct? Because then it's not a security. SEC does not have jurisdiction.
Well, it depends on what they're after, bro.
But as of right now, if it's not a security, it does not fall under their jurisdiction, and that's what the letter would do. And this is where I get frustrated, because this is so frustrating. So if it's not a security, they don't have jurisdiction, they can't do anything. And you're saying that one has nothing to do with the other, when it has everything to do with it, because going after and getting that letter literally gets rid of all of the other heat. So they do have everything to do with the other. And it's just a really funny coincidence. I've learned that there's no such thing as a coincidence, that was brought up and $1 million was asked for by you guys from the Hex community at the exact same time.
You know what, bro? You keep throwing this stuff out.
They're
Like,
facts.
we're
What did I just
trying
say that's not
to
fact?
take money from people, and that's bullshit, man. I've had it with your crap, bro. You
Really?
come in here and you
Take
act like
money?
we're trying to come and fleece the community. That's not what
No,
this is about, and it
you're
has
trying to get
absolutely nothing to
Hexicans to
do
pay
with
the
our.
legal fees and
Hold on. It has absolutely nothing to do with our legal fees. My legal fees are taken care of by me. They aren't taken care of by this. We saw a window of opportunity here to go and help Hex. That's all I've ever done. And all you've ever done is try and throw sand in my eyes every time. And I've been quiet about it, Freddie. I've been quiet about you publicly. But I've had it with this. I've had it with you coming in here trying to FUD what it is that we're trying to do. It has no grounds. You have a personal vendetta against my partner, and we all know that. And you need to take it up with him, and you need to go work that out. That's not what's happening here. And I'm not going to let you bastardize this like you've done in the past. So please stop it. I let you come up here and speak, but I'm not going to let you try and put this on me like I'm trying to fleece the community, because that's absolutely not what I've done. And in fact, I've supported you 100% on everything that you've done. So you need to stop it.
So am I going to be able to speak without being spoken over and then muted? Because that's what
I'm going
happened.
to let you go
And then
now.
you
Go
said,
for it,
a
Freddie.
bunch of stuff that wasn't true. I never said you're policing the community. I said that you are
You
making it
just said
sound
it's
like one
awful
has. Can
funny.
I talk, please? Can you just shut up, dude? You said that one has nothing to do with the other when they are tied together so tightly
No,
that
they're not.
so correct me if I'm wrong, if you get that letter, the subpoenas don't go away?
No.
They
It has
don't?
absolutely nothing to do
They
with what
don't?
they're looking
They
for.
don't?
They're
Are you
looking
sure
for a
about that?
connection.
Are
They're
you
looking
sure?
for a connection of
I don't
you
care what
or
they're looking
me
for.
or any other influencer
I
getting
don't
paid by
care.
Richard Hart.
That doesn't matter. You received a
That
subpoena
has
from
nothing to do
the
with the
SEC.
security.
The SEC, oh my God. They are the Securities and Exchange Commission, RG, right? And if you
But that's
think,
not everything they investigate.
okay, right, they no longer have
Look at the
jurisdiction. If it's deemed
Kardashian
that it's not a
case.
security, if it's deemed that it's not a security, do the subpoenas go away? Yes, more than likely they do, because it's
No,
no
they
longer a
don't,
security.
because that's not what they're investigating. I just got done telling you that.
Okay.
They're
All right.
investigating people who are being paid by Richard Hart.
So at the that's just the first level of it, to my understanding. That's just the first level of
But
this
everybody
investigation,
has a
to my
different
understanding.
subpoena.
Sorry,
Everybody's
Freddie.
subpoena is not asking for the same thing.
Allegedly paid.
Sorry, Freddie. Just quickly, we actually have no idea what the SEC's intent is until they bring formal action. Because, I mean, you know, although people have posted their private subpoenas that they've received from the SEC online in a public forum, that's their right to do so. But the SEC, their matter is confidential until they bring an action. And like with the library case, they issued private confidential subpoenas in March 2018 and then didn't file an action for 3 years.
Right. And what does the SEC do? It's in their name. They're the Securities and Exchange Commission, right? They're checking on to see what happened, what went down. This is probably the first layer of this investigation. It's very early. Nobody knows how deep this is going to go. But if it's deemed that Hex is not a security, they no longer have jurisdiction.
Yeah,
right?
So
but
Am I
why
wrong
is
there?
that a bad thing? I don't understand, Freddie.
Right. It's not a bad thing. But
wouldn't it be great
this is
though,
my point.
Freddie?
Herein lies my point. Herein lies my point. At that instance, all of your subpoenas go away. All of your company subpoenas go away. And to ask the community for $1 million
No,
and say
my
that there's no
subpoenas don't go away.
relation,
My legal counsel had
this
to
is
pay.
fuck.
I had to pay my legal counsel to handle all of my companies and me personally. Has absolutely nothing to do. I've already done that. I've already have my lawyers in place. Has nothing to do with this, Freddie.
For now,
I'm
it
not
could go
getting
on
out
for a
of it
very long time,
scot-free.
bro.
I'm not taking the community's money
Then why
to
are you
handle my
asking the community
business.
for money?
Oh my
To get
gosh.
to get to
It's a
get a
legal
letter. So this
defense
could go on
fund.
for years, dude. Years.
And
There's no
exactly. Is there
timeline
a
on how
problem
long this
with
could
that?
take, right?
Would you go
Why?
do it?
So here's another thing too. Is Richard contributing to this?
Of course not. I just explained that to you in the beginning. Richard hasn't paid for anything. He hasn't paid for any of our streams. He hasn't paid for any of us to do any of the things that we've done. He didn't pay for your music video. He didn't pay for us to travel out to see you. He didn't pay for any of the legal defense funds on any of our companies or any of us personally. He didn't pay for this thing that we're trying to do now. Of course not. He hasn't done any of that. Why? Because Richard's always been very smart about that. He knows that he doesn't want to have any connection between us and him as far as that regards go, because at that point then we have a problem, because then he started to commingle the community and the people that are supposed to be just fans of what's going on here. We're supposed to all just be fans, right? We're not supposed to be a company. We're not
I don't
supposed to
think
be an
Richard's dumb enough to
entity.
do that.
Of course he's not.
Yeah, he's
And
not
he
dumb enough
hasn't.
to do that.
He's never done anything like that. He's never given us any money. I can barely get 3 or 4 words from him when I try and message him.
So my next question is, with Kinetics asking the community for millions of dollars or $1 million potentially up to, and that's just to start. It could go longer. No one knows how much money or how long this would take. Is he completely trustworthy with money? Has he ever signed contracts or anything that you know of, to your understanding, or that you've seen, that he hasn't fulfilled any financial contractual obligations?
I know
Is
where
he
you're
in the
going with
position
this,
to
Freddie,
ask?
but
Is he
you
in
have
the position
absolutely
to
no
ask
idea what you're
Hexagon for
talking
money?
about. You have
Okay.
absolutely no idea what you're talking about. You've heard things in the background that you know nothing about, and you've tried to make them public,
Okay.
and you've made some grave mistakes with your
Okay.
vernacular and what you've said. And
Okay.
yes, I trust him fully because he is my partner and we are in business together and I trust him. and I've
So
trusted
you
him
don't
from the
know of
beginning.
anything. You don't know of anything or any time he's ever promised money and he hasn't been able to pay fully.
Nope.
He's in 100% good standing and you trust him with every penny that you have.
100% good standing. Yes. He's made good on everything that he's done. So I don't know where you get your information or what you've
He's
done.
fulfilled all of his financial contracts.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Famous has got his hand up. Go ahead, mate.
Sorry about that. I was going to say, I was just going to try and marry this a little bit together because I think there is enlightened self-interest here, which is okay. Like, I think his opinion is going to be useful to you guys that are getting subpoenas. I don't see what's wrong with that. I think it's a good point that Freddie's making, that it does help, everybody who's in this situation. I think that's true as well. Like, I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of about that. The other thing I was going to say is, I think what this investigation is obviously trying to do is it's looking at very specific types of people. It wants to see what kind of behavior those people did, if there was anything illegal they did. It's very possible that some of these people may have done bad things, right? But that's on them, right? So, if somebody did something really nefarious, that doesn't mean the whole community is necessarily going to be punished for that, right? So what I'm saying is, I'm really not too worried. All things considered, this is going to be a speed bump for a few people maybe, and the rest of us, we won't even feel it.
Well, like I said, the information that they're asking for is they want to know your bank account information, your crypto wallet addresses. They want to know if there is money exchanging hands, not about investments, not about whether or not you purchased or participated in a security. They want to know if, because of the information that's being asked in some of these subpoenas, they want to know. I think they're trying to connect wallets is what it looks like.
Are you obligated to give that to them?
If there's a court order, this isn't a court order.
And if
this is a request.
Would you do it just to clear the name, or is that something you wouldn't give them unless the court order?
Of course, you'd have to seek your legal counsel's opinion on what that is. And of course, if a court order comes, you need to comply. Or be under penalty of whatever comes from that. That's what they're asking for right now. Is I'm seeing wallet addresses being asked for, bank statements, things to that nature, contracts. That's the other thing.
So it doesn't even really sound like they're even interested in Hex. They're just interested in what you
they're
just
interested
said.
in the personal individuals, their influencer status, and what connections they may have with any of the entities that are Hex, Pulse, and PulseX. That's what it appears. So that tells me that they're looking for individuals and nefarious activity that's going on behind the scenes. And we all as community members know, those of us in here who are influencers, Freddie knows that he hasn't been paid any money by Richard or anybody else to go do what he does. Maddie knows that he hasn't been paid by anybody to go do what he does through a Hex entity or a Pulse X entity or anything like that. So we all know where we stand because none of us have been paid by any entities like that. So that's what it appears that they're looking for.
RG3, I can also confirm I'm also not so worried because none of you guys have ever asked me for a cent either. None of you influencers, not one of you, which actually surprises me a little bit. But yeah, like none of you.
Honestly, it sounds like the SEC already knows that Hex isn't a security. They're just looking for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say.
And the only way they can do that is to connect exchange of funds.
Well, the easiest thing for in these cases to put together is what's called a RICO Act case, and it's a racketeering case. For those of you who don't know what the RICO Act is, and racketeering is when you've got a group of people that have gotten together and conspired, and that's what they're looking for. That's what's going to get Sam Bankman Fried eventually. Yeah, at the same time we said it. That's how they're going to end up getting SBF and FTX, is they're going to get them on RICO. and everybody's going to go down for that, from bankers to politicians to everything else. That's what they're trying to piece together, and that's what they're trying to piece together here. But
It
they've
sounds
thrown a
like
wide
pulse
blanket.
surges, right? Like they don't. I don't think that. I think they know it's not a security, and they're just trying to do whatever they can to, like
Basically,
pulse surge said.
basically what I'm
Well,
saying is that the SEC isn't really doing an investigation. They're just looking for a reason to deem Hex a security, and they already know that they can't do that, so they're trying to find suspicious bank activity.
well, what happens from our counsel, what happens is the people who roll over and start sending lots of information, sometimes they find something else in there that they can find, or get them on, or get them to turn over other information on. That's how these cases work. They they cast a wide net, they see what they catch, and then sometimes people are just willing to give everything, and willing to talk, and willing to snitch and all that kind of stuff. So that's what they're looking for, is throw a
Do
wide
you,
net, see
do you
what we
think
can
this whole
catch.
thing has any part in Richard not releasing Pulse Chain yet, or do you think it has nothing to do with it?
Well, once the Freedom of Information Act request is honored, then we'll know exactly where this came from, who submitted it, and then we'll be able to expose that and understand the strategies and tactics that they're trying to deploy, so that we can, mount basically the request to them, how we're going to have Hex vindicated.
I'm saying though, do you think this whole thing has anything to do with the delay of Pulse Chain at all, from Richard's standpoint?
No, I don't think
Okay.
this has anything to do with that. This, Richard's delays and everything or whatever Richard has going on, and this kind of just popped up in the middle of it. I think that it could have possibly made somebody upset. I think that maybe somebody could have got in at the top and wrote it down 90% and is hurting and made a complaint. I've seen a lot of that, but I really don't know. So, hey, we got two people. I don't know who put your hand up first, if it was the green guys or Hex Capitalist, but you guys have your hands up.
I think it was Hex. So go ahead. I'll go after him.
All right.
Two questions. Number one, it seems like that the Hex community has been targeted specifically in the crypto space, or have you guys heard of any other communities being essentially subpoenaed? And then the other question on that will be, based on my 2-second Google search, it seems like we should get an update on the Freedom of Information Act within 20 days. Can anyone confirm?
FOIAs usually take 30 days, from my understanding.
Yeah, it's supposed to be
At least 30
something.
days.
And then it seems like Hexicans were the only ones that got targeted in the past couple of weeks or months.
I don't know if there were other communities that got hit. I know our community got hit pretty hard, and it was very obscure. I mean, it was like very high level influencers like Maddie, and and then other people who didn't have YouTube channels, who were hardly known really in the community, that were just affiliated with people that were influencers and whatnot. So it was really willy-nilly who got them. So a lot of people in the community got them, and nobody knows really any rhyme or reason as to why. So we're hoping that'll be clarified more once this FOIA comes through.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna jump in if you don't mind. So it's really kind of odd and strange that there's no consistency across the board with the SEC whatsoever. I'm a Hexican as well, but I also have AMP token and XYO, and they've both been non-formally hit with, I don't even know what you would call it. I guess they got attached to some lawsuit with the Coinbase fiasco thing, with the insider trading thing, and and they just got attached and named in that lawsuit, but they were never formally served. And I run the AMP token group on Facebook, and we have thousands and thousands of people in there. And so I was really concerned, especially for my community. And then now this came up with Hex, and it's just so strange because now you've got a declarative statement, but for AMP token and XYO and all these other communities, there's nothing. There's nothing except for here, we're going to throw your name in this lawsuit, and then Flexa and AMP token and XYO, they've all reached out to the SEC and got crickets. Even myself, I got a hold of that, the lawsuit that they had. And then I looked on the bottom and I found all the emails of the people that work in the SEC. And I got about 23 emails on there. And then I sent an email out to them asking them a ton of questions. Like, well, is it a security? Should the community really worry about it? And why was there no warning? Can you answer these questions? And I got complete crickets. Nothing. Not one of those 23 people answered back. So there's no clarity, and I don't even know
No,
what they're trying to do. What are they trying to do? Like, can you just
no.
give us a roadmap and say, here's what it is? It. And I guess my question for the for the Hex community is, was Hex registered as an exempt, non-security, and the initial, the ICO stages and stuff like that? Did you guys have any kind of communication or any kind of filing with the SEC at all?
No. There was nothing formal. I don't think that can even be done. No, it was always assumed that it wasn't. Basically, the legal opinion that we have states that very clearly. That Hex is not a security, and we believe that has nothing but the best standing. That Hex is not a security, and it worked for the Hex Investment Trust when we submitted our PPM to the SEC. They didn't give us a no. They took everything and allowed us to function. So they don't put necessarily a stamp of approval on anything. See, the SEC it's a very strange, and I'm just kind of learning about all of this as we go along here. I'm not an SEC expert. I'm starting to learn and understand more. But they just bring civil case. They don't have any teeth. They could offer it up to the DOJ for a suggestion that, hey, there was an illegal nefarious activity here that needs to be taken up by the DOJ. That's all they can do. And that's why everybody says, oh, all they did was slap their hands and this and that. It's because that's all the SEC can really do is just levy some fines or request to get those. They basically just come in and sue people and try and get fine money. That's it. There's no real regulatory body or anything like that. And let's face it, that Gary Gensler has been lackluster on, putting anything together for this space of clarity. He hasn't done anything for us. He hasn't done anything for crypto. He talked a game about it. Um, you know, um, and Gary just informed me that, Hex launched complete without a fundraise or being an ICO. We had the adoption amplifier. It was given to Bitcoiners for free. So Hex stands on a different ground when it comes to how it was launched. The AA lobby was something completely different than a sacrifice phase. For those of you who weren't around, the way the AA lobby worked, or the way the AA worked, the adoption amplifier, was for a whole year. Every single day, there was a bucket of Hex that was up for grabs, basically. And that bucket of Hex was a certain amount. I forget what it was, some
It's
billions of
500 million or
500
500.
million.
Yeah, I think it was 500 million. So basically, it was like a lotto drawing. Like it was like you're gambling for the day. Do you want to fucking roll
Yeah,
the dice on the lotto drawing, or do you want to go buy your hex on fucking
yeah.
Uniswap? Like,
And
it's
you could
basically
basically you put your Ethereum in there, and if you got in at the beginning of the day, it looked like you were going to get a bunch of Hex. But as more and more Ethereum was left to us and what was called Big Payday. And on Big Payday, those of us who were staked were going to get a certain amount of what was left over from those who didn't claim, who didn't free claim their Bitcoin claims. And that's how Hex was launched. So a lot different than Sacrifice Phase or an ICO. So it was launched without being an ICO. Let me let Gary, go ahead. Come on up, bud. I know you're out in the airport.
Yeah, so real quick, of course, what the AA just explained, if no one ever participated in the AA whatsoever, zero, then 500 million would have been available as Hex. It never would have been claimed, or the AA wouldn't have distributed. That would have meant that all Hex would have only been to Bitcoin claimers and, claimants or whatever. So it's similar to an airdrop. It had zero value, and zero value as far as an airdrop to BTC holders. And if there was any value perceived by speculators that participated in AA, it was simply to be in that same pile. There's a lot of legal opinions that I believe that Richard went through before, and in game theory when we were all in the Telegram groups in 2018. So a lot of this game theory actually has played out in legal context as well, 4 years ago. So I think we're in a amazing position as far as its quote unquote virgin launch, very similar to BTC being deemed as not a security back in 2018, I think. We're in an amazing position, in my opinion. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't deal with the SEC regularly, but that's what I have heard from people that do all the time. And again, kudos to whether the product of the Hex Investment Trust ever has any benefit or not to any participants in the HIT. There was a lot of money and a lot of time that was put into the trust itself being available. And that scrutiny was by all sorts of lawyers, all sorts of community members that participated in the education process. And I think that has a lot of merit as well. It is interesting that the people that are the loudest spoken and basically do educate a lot of the community are the ones that are getting grilled for whether it's a fundraise or a legal fund or, man, you seem to be monetizing because you have super chats or all this kind of stuff. Like, what is the value of a value airdrop until community actually gives it such a value, right? So it's interesting who gets grilled, who's public, who's out there, who's put voice to this kind of context. And we stress a lot over this because our personal names are the ones receiving these letters, right? So it's interesting the armchair quarterbacking that goes on by people that don't have any skin in the game, or if they do, they're anonymous skin. It's a challenge of being a community leader.
Hex Famous and then KG.
Yeah, well, here's some armchair quarterbacking going on right here. It's just my personal opinion, like as far as these subpoenas go and like how they list Hex is the matter of Hex, but I think if it wasn't for, well, let me just back it up. I guess, probably the Hex Investment Trust probably, piqued the SEC's eye a little bit, I'm thinking, but I think their main issue or what they're going after is the Pulse chain and Pulse X sacrifice. I mean, that has been, there was a lot of money raised there, and it's been over fucking 2 years, and I'm sure there's a shit ton of people that are pissed off and probably complained about that. And they're probably just trying to look into, obviously, the base layer would be the Hex community, because that's where all the promotion from it came from, right? And they're just trying to track down to see if anyone was actually paid to promote these sacrifices for Pulse Chain to gather up all these money from outside investors, and then nothing has ever come of it. So that's probably like, it looks like a big pile of shit if you're looking at it from the outside, because that was a bunch of money that was raised and nothing has happened, and it's been over 2 years, and there's probably a lot of people complaining. And I think that's what they're trying to, actually track down. And that's just my personal opinion.
I don't think you're wrong. I just don't know for sure. And once we do know more, then we'll have a better idea. But I tend to think that you're correct. But we're just going to have to wait and see.
All right, I'm going to go ahead. Not going to cut anybody off, but
Okay, get you.
yeah. So backtracking a little bit, somebody asked the question, why is the SEC so inconsistent? And I've done a lot of internal framing, right? I come from a background of, you know, being a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, right? Thinking about the deep state cabal and all these things. So I've run down those rabbit holes before. But as I've come in contact with these entities and shaken hands with these people, you realize that these people are just people. They have lives, they have children, they have partners, they have, they get the stomach flu, they have normal real people problems. And then taking it one step further, there are 5 commissioners and 1 chairman. And cryptocurrency is only a subset of everything that they focus on. And furthermore, on Ethereum alone, one blockchain, there are over 10,000 projects. There is no way that this entity can seamlessly perform its duties. And one step further, all these projects have different intricacies. It could literally be everything's the same, but this one point's different, and therefore it's a different case. So, being that they're people, and people are imperfect by nature, and there's all these intricacies that most people don't even understand, it's arguably an impossible mission to be consistent in their approach.
I like what you said. Oftentimes, we don't humanize these people and these entities. We demonize them. We talk about them like there's some kind of cabal, like there's some kind of alien race, lizard people that are going to come eat our children and all this kind of crap. Those people are real people that are doing a job. And like you said, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of projects for them to have to look at. And let's face it, crypto deserves scrutiny. There's 99% of the stuff out there that's crap, that's wrecking people, that we've been out there screaming at the rooftops, trying to stop, trying to get people to quit doing. Along with Richard, we've been out there being the voices of reason in this space, and we've done it right. We have absolutely done it right. All the Hexicans here that have gone out and promoted and promoted the tenets of what Richard has taught us, we've all done it right, and we've won. We were right, and they were wrong. And when the smoke clears, we're the ones that are going to be standing there without egg on our face. And I think that, the squeaky wheel getting the grease is what's happened here. Somebody, probably because of this delay, has complained, or multiple people have complained, and they're just doing what they do. And that is, well, let's gather some information. There's lots of complaints here. Let's send out, let's send out the net and see what we can catch. And I think that's what's going on here.
And that's why you can't really, sorry to not raise my hand. That's why you
No, go
can't
ahead.
really look at them as people. They're an entity, so they don't care about your feelings, your emotions, and it's I don't look at them as people, personally.
Well,
And
the
I don't
people
think you can.
behind the actions is what he's saying, is that, these things are being done by people. They're fallible. They make mistakes, and they're just trying to get a job done, and
Right,
and
right, right.
I'm not trying to vindicate what it is that they're doing. What I'm saying is that there's human beings behind this trying to do a job, and they're just, complying with whatever's going on out there. It's obvious that they're not being proactive in this space. There was obviously something reactive that happened here, and these people are just doing what their next, indicated step is, and that's okay. Well, find a bunch of these people and send out the net. And if the thing that's been happening out there is like what happened to the Kardashians, or Kim Kardashian herself. She was hit for shilling, and they called whatever her activity was questionable. And instead of going through the lawsuit, she just paid, I think it was $1 million fine. She just kind of settled out. And for somebody like that, obviously, it's not a big deal to her. She just settled out so she didn't have to deal with it and be scrutinized by the SEC. So I think that whatever precedents they were setting there, because they have gone after a lot of these celebrities that have been out there shilling some of this garbage that's out there, I think that maybe that's what they're trying to accomplish here with going after influencers and whatnot. But again, that doesn't tell me why they've gone after some of the obscure people that had absolutely nothing to do with being out there influencing.
Yeah,
That's
that
kind
is
of
that is a
strange.
bit odd to me. That's odd to me.
Well, I think on that point, again, complete speculation, and maybe it's not even worth speculating. But whoever or whatever group started all this, and like you said, RG3, perfectly, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. The SEC gets complaint after complaint after complaint. But if somebody complains loud enough and hard enough, and enough people complain loud enough and hard enough, well, what choice do they have but to go pursue? Because they're in the business of winning. They're arguably not going to pursue something if they don't think that there's at least a decent chance, because they are a business at the end of the day, and they're investing human resources and economic resources, and they expect to get a return on their investment. And unfortunately, that return on their investment is extortion in some ways. If they're actually out there stopping fraud, good for them. But in some ways, their return on investment is extortion. And possibly the person or entity or people who reported or was the squeaky wheel in this case pointed out particular influencers that they were mad at. And that's why these people that were picked off were because the same entity or group of people that alerted the SEC gave them specific names.
Yeah.
That's what I take from it.
And also, you gotta understand Richard, what Richard does, and he's not stupid. Richard is a fucking genius. He's thought all this through. I guarantee you, when he was making Hex, he thought about all the possibilities that could happen here, and I guarantee you, he knows he's poking the bear a little bit with what he does. So it's not like he didn't expect this stuff to happen. I don't think. I think he knew exactly what he was doing, and probably expected this to happen at some point.
Yeah, hence why he's been so very careful with all of us. I know that we've all had, the same experience, that those of us who are, I guess you would call in the kind of inner circle or do have contact with him, we all say the same thing. The man answers us in a very few words. We rarely get, have contact with him. And none of us, me and Hexo have even, laughed about it sometimes. Like, man, it's like he'll come at Hexo and treat him like, hey, where's my thumbnail? Like Hexo was literally making free thumbnails for the guys. Like, hey, dude, it's free, man. And he's like, oh, that one sucks. Fix this one. And it was like, Hexo's like, damn, man, this dude's not even paying me. Treat me like I'm a damn employee. And that's literally, the interaction that we all had with him. He never paid any of us for anything, and we all did stuff and contributed to the cause here, and it was to our benefit, because now as we look at things, it's like all of us can honestly say, hey, Richard never gave us anything. We've never had any interaction with him or a contract or anything, So yeah, he was smart in how he handled all this.
Yeah, I made a thumbnail for Richard once. It was fun, but I never got paid for it, so that's a good thing.
And also, when you create something that is, oh, sorry, go ahead, Maddie, my bad.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like, people are always gonna complain about stuff, especially in a bear market. I mean, the whole reason Pulse Chain had to come about was because everybody was complaining about high fees, which is the whole problem in crypto since the beginning almost. So crypto could never get popular without having high fees. And I think Pulse Chain will solve that. And I'm really glad I sacrificed for freedom of speech and freedom of movement because we were in a bull market and I had money to sacrifice for things just to get points, just to prove a point, really. The sacrifice was to prove a point. And it was like, that's when the Canadian truckers were going through their thing. I mean, all this stuff is like Occupy Wall Street, 10 years later. And so there is a super strong case because everybody understood. And we are the ones who helped people understand, I would say. Like, you're not going to get anything out of this. It's literally a sacrifice. And so if everybody knew that, and it was written everywhere, and it was explained by 100 different people, I would say, like, that's pretty cool. And that's so it's going to be like, yeah, I think it's going to be like a silly argument, really anything the SEC says. I think people are just complaining because it's a bear market, maybe, but show me the people who didn't understand what sacrifice meant.
Yeah, the disclaimers were literally everywhere. People
are mad that it's not out yet because they're mad that Hex isn't worth more. They're mad that the Fed isn't printing money anymore. All this kind of stuff, like normal bear market stuff.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Maddie. In a bear market, people would complain about getting a free blowjob. That's it's just the way of the freaking world. When we got a bear market, it's the worst.
Yeah.
It brings out the worst in crypto folk. That's for sure.
For sure.
Good to see you, by the way.
Likewise.
Yeah, that can't even be an argument that someone wouldn't know that it was, they were sacrificing. Like that was everywhere. So I don't even think they could use that as any kind of valid argument.
Yeah, when you use software that you like, which is cryptocurrency, when you use software, first of all, if you talk about it, that's free speech. If you use the software, that's free speech. And if you, sacrifice money, that's really, really, really free speech. Because money is speech even. And so it's completely covered.
And when it comes down to it, cryptocurrencies are just baseball cards. It's all of us rooting for our favorite team, trading baseball cards, because they really don't have any monetary value until we put monetary value into them. And we're all just rooting for our favorite baseball team. That's it. That's all this is all about. I mean, they are not securities. They are not currency. They are just digits on the freaking internet. That's it. They're just little functions. They're send functions.
And Hex is like a really interesting example too, because it's something that the world has never seen before, a community like the Hex community, where we say we, and somebody on the outside, they could think that means like there's a business involved or like that we worked for Richard or something. But no, like we've taken ownership of this decentralized thing. And, Richard used to often say like, there's so many people learning about Hex who didn't even learn about it from him. And so that should show you that even our language, if we clean up like the we language when people are asking about what Hex is, I mean, it's a perfect teachable moment, I think, too. But yeah, I mean, like we've always explained it so well. This is software, like this is sacrifice, this is freedom of speech. Like these are things that really matter in the world to a group of people who, care about that. So.
And also, crypto in general, literally just by nature, challenges the entire legacy banking system. So it's not like it's it wasn't expected that if you're challenging the big boys with something like crypto, they can actually empower the people and close the gap between wealthy and poor or blue collar, whatever. That it's not going to piss somebody off. Like that's.
Well, I think there's some Bitcoiners who have some really cool ideas about how like crypto can integrate with, like it already does really. Like crypto integrates with the legacy financial system. Like you can still have a strong dollar and you can have Bitcoin go up 7 million X. So there's so much room. And, the more that you have competition in a free market, then you would expect like technology to improve to a point where there is more abundance for all. And so if you create lots of valuable tokens, but you also create like that affects people to the point where they'll work for that. And then, they'll build cool things that then increase the productivity and the GDP of the world. That's a situation where you can have your cake and eat it too.
But they know money's power, right? So this is just my opinion. I don't like, and you could say it's tinfoil hat, whatever. But I think that, I don't know. It just seems like cryptocurrency can make people rich as fuck, and I don't think that they want that, for obvious reasons. That empowers people. It puts more control back to the people, like more power back to the people. I just don't think that the higher ups want that. So
I think it's not that big of a problem yet because you've never had something, where you can time lock really. And so I think a lot of people sell on the way up, and that's just kind of human nature. But so, yeah, I mean, like that's a more of an economics debate and everything. I think that people can use crypto to like have a positive narrative for themselves. Like I could use this to make myself more productive. I could use this to, pay myself to have a behavior change that I want to do. And that's always been like my little kind of like psychology angle on crypto, which is like, that's just everybody's in it for different reasons, right? But yeah, I think I think crypto is super valuable even within the current system. I don't think one has to crash for them to get along.
And by the way, I'm glad you're okay, Matty. That was a gnarly wreck. Saw the pictures.
Yeah, thank you, man. Having 2 broken clavicles is no fun, but it's like a 6-week recovery process. And when I stream, I'm focused to where I'm not feeling the pain as much, and so it's good. My mind's okay.
Yeah, that's good, man. Keep your head up.
Thank you.
Second that, bro. Glad to hear you're okay.
Thanks, man.
Yep. We're gonna have to get you a roll cage in that car of yours.
I know, right? Yeah, it was somebody else's car, and it was like it had like a top speed of like 160, just like a Tesla, and
oh boy,
that was it's really serious. You could say maybe it like flipped like 2 or 3 or 4 times, and but somehow I'm alive, and 15 airbags really makes a difference, I can say.
Did you go unconscious?
Yeah, like I got knocked out by an airbag or by a flip, but
damn,
it's I have no idea how I survived, but so did everybody.
Those are the types of events that make us start thinking about what is our purpose here on this planet.
For real. Well, and so it makes me really sure, like that the SEC thing it's not going to scare me off. I mean, it's silly anyway. But yeah, like crypto is where it's at.
And that's where I'm coming with this, is that it shouldn't scare us. I mean, we don't have to go and fight these guys, and we do need to take it to them and take their own fight to them, and make them comply with what we realize what we have. We are the best community in all of crypto. We have the best founder in all of crypto. We have the best crypto in all of crypto. And we've always known that. We've been shouting that at the rooftops, and it's time for them to acknowledge it. Crypto is, look at Richard, finally, for the first time, I heard him go on a stream tonight on BitBoys spaces, and he was treated with respect. He didn't have the typical, oh, why'd you let this clown in here? Why'd you let this guy in? Oh, great, the scammers. I didn't hear any of that come from any of them. They listened to him. They thanked him. They agreed with him. He had conversation with them. It was very pleasant to see Richard actually getting to speak with other people in the crypto space and be respected. It was really good to hear. If you haven't heard that, go listen to BitBoy's thing that he did today on the FTX thing, and Richard went there and got to speak a little bit about it and had some great insight, and they all praised him for it. It was really good to hear. And
I did
they're
find it
all
hilarious when he asked him about following him on Twitter. That was funny.
yeah,
That was so funny.
he did. And they said, "Why aren't you following?" He's like, "Hey, bro, I'm sorry, I don't follow anybody who shills other cryptos. Only Richard Hart products." And that was great, man. I thought that
That
was
was
awesome.
funny as shit. I love it.
And he's
Hey,
still
he's a
so
real
he
one,
wouldn't
man.
follow.
You got to give Richard that. He's a real one. He stands by what he believes in, dude. So
He's real and he stands by what he believes in, and we all should be standing by him because when the smoke clears on all this, we're standing there. We're the community that has to go out there and pave the way because crypto's wrecked. I mean, they're wrecked. Decentralized exchanges are just, they're all going to domino down. And this FTX thing is wide, broad, and it ain't over yet. And Richard's going to end up getting his 10K call. And more of this stuff's coming out. Wednesday, there's going to be another announcement. This thing is getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And by the time it's over, we're going to be the ones that were speaking truth. We are the ones that were out there trying to help others. And it's going to be Richard. We're going to be able to stand those two next to each other, SBF and Richard, and go, you trust this guy more than likely because of how this guy looks. But guess which guy scammed you? Guess which guy didn't scam you? And that's the narrative right now. It's like everybody trusted this mild-mannered looking kid who's, driving around in a Toyota Corolla, but no harm to nobody. I mean, what a freaking ruse was that, And then here's Richard, like could barely walk out of the store because he has so many Dior bags in his hands. Like that was classic. When he waddled out of that last one, it was just like, oh my gosh, this is freaking hilarious, man. It's just hilarious. He's just in their face, showing them, yep, I'm the scammer, guys. I'm spending all your money, but he's actually the guy that's trying to save crypto. And that's what we're going to be able to stand on.
This SEC thing, I think, is going to move too slow for how I'm moving because, I invented a method to undo a hack in DeFi, and the code's in production.
To undo a what?
To be able to undo a hack.
Oh, got you.
And that's part of the reason why people keep their crypto on centralized exchanges. It's part of the problem with crypto is that it's so easy to lose. But if you have a pre-selected recovery address, that's the key. And then you also have to have a delay on like how long it takes to be able to withdraw. So as Hexicans, we're used to waiting 6.5 years to get our money withdrawn. But with Time Pays Me, it's a vault that you can use to time lock Pulse Chain and Pulse X. And it's just, 7-day withdraw is that's the minimum. And so if a hacker has your seed words, and I'm going to publicly read my seed words to $10,000 worth of Pulse Chain tokens if they ever drop with that kind of value. And, you'll be able to load my seed words into your, into your MetaMask. And you can see that even as you pretending to be a hacker, I can still change the ownership of my vault to something that's pre-selected. Because if you and I both have the same seed words and the interface has a pre-selected recovery wallet, why would that hacker ever, it doesn't matter if they flip the switch or I do, but why would they ever get rid of their chance to steal the coins? So basically it's just it's something that can be done where you hold your own keys. And so if the Securities and Exchange Commission wants to look at me, I'm going to show them some shit that really needs to happen.
Good on you, man. And that's what Hexicans should be doing is building good stuff. And that's what Richard told us all to do. And that's what we're trying to do here is do things for Hex, for the community. And Red, you've had your hand up, Redbird 1. let you speak. I'm sorry, man. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Hi, thanks. It was super quick. I'm actually working on a deadline. Um, but thank you for holding the space. I had questions about the legal fund. I just didn't understand exactly how it works. Like, is there, um, you know, I posted a few questions as far as, who are the admins? You guys going to go through like 501c3? What's How is
No,
that going to be administered, and will there be financial statements provided for transparency? What's the experience of the legal team?
yes. So the legal team is helping us handle it. We can't pay the legal team directly through the donations. The legal team has asked that the donations go to a donation address, and then that address will send them the funds to them. So that's the transparency and how it'll happen is it'll be sent to the legal entity. We're not revealing who they are yet. Um, After the fund, they've asked that they don't go directly to them yet, but you'll be able to see the Ethereum address out there. It's been posted, and it's actually here in the chat there, so you can see it. Um, that's the Ethereum address that it's all going to go to, and then it will be transferred into to the legal counsel's bank account.
Okay, and so at that point, are you guys going to do a 501c3? Will financial statements be like the Ethereum address is not, that's
There
not a
will be
balance sheet, that's not an income statement. So
no, of course not, and definitely if you're looking at Etherscan, you'll never figure it out. But no, it's going to be all handled. The exacts of that we've only had one meeting with council at this point, and that's what they asked us to do, was to go ahead and start that Ethereum address, and then they were going to put all that together for us, and we were going to have transparency, and of course there's always the Etherscan that can be viewed, that you'll see what funds are going in there now. I think there's probably around $4,000 or $5,000 in there now, in crypto. I think it's in USDC. So there is funds starting to flow into there now.
okay, yeah, I was just
And
so
then we'll give more
unlike
clarity as time
funding,
goes on.
unlike funding, fund money, because I've donated to a variety of fun things, right? Golf tournaments and NASCAR things. But the for this, it seems like it ought to be, mentally for me, it seems like, oh, maybe the legal team ought to, like, a 501c3 ought to be formed, whereas we haven't worried about that in the past. At this
Yeah,
point, with something like this, it seems appropriate. And then, of course, when you have 501c3 donors and financial statements and all that stuff. So that's what I was curious about.
yeah, and there's taxes that need to be paid and all that kind of jazz too.
100%, absolutely. Whereas, like, again, if you're funding a NASCAR, it's like it's a little more fun, so we don't worry about that sort of thing. But when it comes to community donations, the same way I, like, if I donate to the food bank, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. And
Okay.
believe me, I cringe. I cringe over this stuff, because anytime we've ever fundraised or given money in a contest, it's always a shit show. And this is the least favorite part of all of this for me, is dealing with the freaking money that it requires to do all of these things, from the movie to the businesses that we've created, everything. It's cringeworthy to me. I'd rather get out there and get in front of this stuff, speak to the community, shake the babies and kiss the hands, and go and produce for the Hex community. That's what I want to do. All this other stuff is just it just, yeah, I cringe against it, and it brings out the worst in everybody. It really does. It's tough stuff to deal with. But
Oh,
yes, there's going to be some more. Um, there's still some more work being done on that. Right now, it's just going to be an Ethereum address until our next meeting with the attorneys. We're going to clarify that also, exactly what that's going to look like and the structure of it, and all the transparency, because we're going to make it absolutely transparent so that everybody can see what's going on when funds move into the attorneys' accounts and whatnot, and what work they are doing and where they're at and the progress that's being made. We're gonna put all of that out in front of the public, because this is a public activity.
so I think that's, so what you call it cringe, it's actually fantastic, because it comes down to specialization, right? Like, I can't do what you do. I'm not good at that. But when it comes to like analyzing financial statements and other stuff, I'm good at that. So like, hey, if we all just donate our time and specialize in what we're good at, then you don't have to do the things that are cringe to you, and I don't have to, go on camera. So
Great. Would you
it
please
can
DM
be a
me and then
win,
we
right?
can please DM me and we can talk. You could probably be on our council here and help us with some of this stuff.
I'm thank you. I'm not, yeah,
I think
but
you just volunteered yourself. Thanks.
oh, good gravy. All right, I'm graduating soon, so maybe I'll have time then. All right, thank you. I'll pass the mic.
All right. Thanks, Red.
Take care.
All right. So I don't know how this works. I don't see anybody requesting down there to speak. But I know that we're full of speakers, I think. So I don't know if people have to leave in order for people to request, or if people
I
are
can
trying to
drop down.
request and they can't.
Yeah, I can drop down. No worries.
Yeah, at the moment, I
We're
don't
not.
see any requests.
Yeah. Is that Motley? You trying to come up, bro? I see you clapping. Did I fix something now that we got an extra spot? Did you want to come up? I don't see a request coming through. Maybe Motley just hanging in the shadows. Right on. All right. Well, any other questions before I go on another rant here or something? Because I got a bunch of them.
Have a question.
Got a bunch of rants. Yeah, go ahead. I can't hear you, KG. Or was it somebody else?
Can you hear me?
Now we can. Go ahead.
Okay, my apologies. Everyone caught me on a very sentimental night, and I'm feeling inspired to share a thought. And if it's annoying, feel free to mute me and shut me up. That's completely okay.
Go ahead.
So, so I've been thinking a lot recently about what it means to be a Hexican, right? Maddie was talking about that we statement. We say Hexican all the time. What does that mean? To me, this is what it means. I believe, and as silly as it may sound, I believe somebody can be a Hexican without owning a single Hex token. Why? Because to me, being a Hexican represents a movement. What were the fundamental philosophies that Hex was founded upon? Think about it. Richard was saying anti-establishment in the sense of Bitcoin being the establishment of his time. Being a Hexican spawned innovation, creativity, intelligence, friendships, community. Being a Hexican is an ideal that anybody can ascribe to, whether you buy the currency or not. Now, I stand for there to be ulterior perspectives. That's okay. Because to me, when I talk about being a Hexican, that to me means innovation, creativity, and inspiration. And this community, you give me an option to pick 10 people from this community, and I'll put them against 10 people from any other community. The Hexicans are by far, without a doubt, the most intelligent and creative community in all of crypto. And I am so honored to be a part of this movement. And I just felt inspired to share that for no other reason than I felt inspired to do it.
Good.
And the crowd goes wild.
Thank you for listening.
That was a great speech.
Thanks.
Everybody's got their own opinions. That's okay.
I'd
Hex
say
and Enzo,
some
were
of
you going to
us are
say
really
something?
smart.
Oh, there's some requests down there. Hold on. Tony Crypto and Harry Sachs. I love our names.
Oh,
Love our
totally,
names.
Buck. Like this community, I leveled up so many degrees when I found the Pulse Chain Telegram room. Literally finding these guys and girls, I was able to pose any possible question that I had in crypto. And if they didn't know the answer, they pointed me to somebody who did. We have indisputably the most intelligent community in crypto. Indisputably.
And pretty dedicated as well, I would say. But I guess that's kind of my point. Is there's definitely going to be a few experts here if you get your message out and loud. RG3, there'll be some people that'll come forward to at least offer you some guidance and maybe to just serve as an extra set of eyes on this thing.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I started the Discourse Syndicate was because of how smart the community is. I wanted to showcase that on YouTube because the Telegram rooms were full of just freaking brilliant people. I mean, every single mod in those rooms, my hat's off to them. They've been in there for years, modding those Telegram rooms and just being stellar human beings, answering the same questions day after day, answering the same FUD, doing the same things for 3 years. My hat's off to those guys and the brilliance that comes out of those Telegram rooms. I just wanted to expose it here, in the Twitter space and in the YouTube space, and man, it's just more and the more and more we did this, the smarter and smarter Hexkins got. And we've got so many brilliant people coming to the community now, and it's just going to get better because we're going to get. I think that this reckoning that pun intended, the reckoning that crypto is seeing right now is going to maybe make some smart people out there because there's some smart people in crypto. There's some good communities out there too that have been, abandoned by their crypto because their crypto failed. But we're going to get some more troops. We're going to get some better people coming in here, and some of the good ones in crypto are going to come over here and join the community and pick up the torch and continue on. I'm confident that's going to happen, and we have to leave fertile ground for them to come to a place so they can come. And I'm glad that things have kind of changed in the Hex community. We were really toxic for a long time, it seemed, but I think that we're being a lot warmer now. I think we're a lot more welcoming, and I think that we're getting a lot more credibility with a lot of these folks. I know Richard is. That's what I'm seeing. By seeing what I saw tonight, it's like gives me hope that finally we're all going to be vindicated. And those of us who are out there streaming and spitting out a spleen for the last few years are going to finally be vindicated for being the guys that were right. And not that we want to be right. I'm not saying I want to be right. I just want people to follow us and listen to the message and learn what we've learned, so they're not going to get wrecked, and so we could take crypto in a different direction. This whole thing, there's a deeper philosophical meaning to all this for me. My goal is to help the guys that are in my position, the 55 and older guys that have worked their whole lives and they don't have a pot to piss in, to have something that they may be able to retire on in the next 5 to 10 years. Because I have never seen a plan out there for these guys that can fix the mess that they're all in. The guys that I blue collar worked with for the last 30 years, they're all wrecked, man. They got nothing. They got no retirement plans. They're going to have to work until they're 75, 80 years old. And that's just not feasible in physical work environment like that, So I've taken it upon myself to try and get Hex to those masses, to those people. And until we can get some type of virality, until we can get crypto fixed, we're not going to be able to do that. So I'm not going to give up until I can go help my brothers out there that are hurting. And that's my plight. And that's why I do this. I've already made mine. I did. Hex freaking fixed my problem for generations. And I'm super fucking grateful for that. Super grateful. Very humbled by it. I don't flaunt it. I don't run around in Ferraris. I bought some rain gutters and a real nice fucking coffee machine for my wife. Oh, and I got a set of kitchen knives that are beyond fucking better than I need. But I appreciate what I've been given, and I want to go and give more. That's honestly what I'm trying to do here. And this isn't about a money grab. I don't need any of your fucking money. I don't need nobody's money around here. I just want to make things better for Hex Kids. And if I can do that, I'm going to do that. And if somebody's got a better idea, then I want them to go do it. But I've seen the community raise money for things like a NASCAR. And I'm not saying anything about that, but I'm saying this is a cause that I think that we should be raising money for. It really is. And it has absolutely nothing to do with my personal need for it. Absolutely nothing. So I take offense, and I'm sorry I got a little louder earlier with Freddie. I just take offense when somebody comes at me like that. Like I've done something fucking wrong. RG3 has done nothing wrong to this community, ever, ever. I've only provided for this community and given of my time, my family's time, my effort, my money to make things better around here and to try and do what I'm trying to do, which is get this out to people who fucking need it and fix crypto, because I believed in it from the beginning and crypto lied to me until Richard came around. That's what I'm trying to do here. So anybody who has anything to say about me trying to make a money grab or my people trying to make a money grab, I fucking take offense to that, because that's not what I'm doing here. So again, I'm sorry for getting emotional about it, but it really fucking pisses me off because I am passionate about this. I've done this out of the goodness of my fucking heart, and I'm going to continue to do it. And I'm not going to let anybody shit talk me or say that I'm doing something wrong, because I'm probably the best guy in crypto as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, that's what I got to say. Sorry, guys. I didn't mean to go on a fucking rant about it.
This is definitely something we should be supporting. I think that the community has a moralistic obligation to support the future of this project. If we're looking for the financial future of our next generation, it can easily be stifled by the SEC. We've seen this with Ripple. Ripple basically lost out on the excuse me, on the last bull run as a result of excuse me, as a result of what we've seen with the SEC. It didn't reach its all-time high as it did in 2017, not even close. And I give a lot of I presume that the main reason for that is the distrust, and almost as if there's a lock on a door for XRP that couldn't expand outside that door because of the fear of what the SEC could do. And I don't want to see the same thing for Hex. This is very real. It is something that the community should be very adamant about speaking about and also perpetuating to get this under control. And I see nothing wrong with asking for donations. It's not obligatory for people to donate. That's something that I feel like people presume that there's this mandatory notion that you have to donate. A simple retweet does a lot for exposure. So that's my thought.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey guys, I got a quick question.
Yeah.
Just say if we are found guilty from the SEC as a security, right? So what will happen to our stakes and the sacrifices? What you guys think will happen?
Well, that's two different things. So if you're talking about Hex, you're talking about your stakes. If you're talking about Pulse, you're talking about your sacrifice. So look, it's going to take them more than likely a long time to sort all of this out themselves, to see what exactly it is that they're trying to do. Like we said, once we get the FOIA, we'll know a little bit more about what they know and what they're doing, what they're trying to accomplish. But as far as your Hex stakes go, I don't think there is absolutely anything that can happen to your Hex stakes, because it is a mutable code that exists on the internet and nobody can touch it but you. Nobody can operate that function but you. So guess what? It'll still be there. Now, can a country regulate whether or not you can accept funds from a certain wallet, or you can accept funds that have been transferred through this thing or that thing, like a tornado cash situation, things like that. Of course, regulatory is where the problem is. Um, I I don't see them making Hex a security and doing anything to any of us. Therein lies their problem. In trying to do something like that, they would hurt lots of people. So usually, what happens with these cases, and again, I don't like really saying these things because I don't want to say, "Oh, this is all they're going to do." That's not true. But usually, what we've seen in these cases is that they levy fines, and then these companies are still continuing to do business as they have been. So that's what we've seen in the past. So at this point, I don't see any cause for real big alarm because we don't know exactly what it is they're trying to do or what they're after.
Thank
If
you.
that
Thank you
answers your
so much.
question.
Thank
Can
you.
can I respond to something Corey said?
Yeah, go ahead.
So Hex is a product, not a project. And so it was launched as a finished product, and that's the community wasn't involved, on the team, on the project, or anything until it became a decentralized smart contract. And so, yeah, so and then XRP, like that's a good example of like where the SEC intervened. But remember, the founders of that were like dumping and lying about it publicly, like over and over and over again. And third of all, like I agree with you that it's cool to donate for important causes like this. And thank you for being one of the best broadcasters in Hex.
No, thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. Godspeed. Thank you. And I really hope the persecution towards you ends soon because it's unwarranted, unjustified, and it's downright economically evil. And I'm sorry you have to go through it.
I hope they look real closely at me because I got some cool things to show them.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And best of luck with time pays me, man. I'll support you however I can.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yo, can I just interject quick, guys?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm reading this. RG3's AMA about the request for a declarative statement from the SEC. So what exactly is going on here? So what, like you guys created some sort of investment trust without
So
getting a license or something like that? Now they're coming to clamp down on you guys. Is that what's going on?
no, that's not what's going on. So what happened was the SEC sent out blanket subpoenas from the SEC, meaning they're not really subpoenas from a court of law. They are the SEC requesting information. The information requested was very broad stroke. They wanted like very, very intimate information about your bank accounts, your crypto accounts, contracts that you have, any interactions that you have, communications that you have. I mean, the scope was very, very broad.
And this went out
Not
to like how many of you guys? Like 10 of you guys, 15 of you guys?
from what I understand, there was about 10 or 15 that got it. Now, in also, 3 of my entities were served these same subpoenas. The information requested was obviously different. My lawyers that represent those entities have handled that situation. But in doing so, we found something interesting that, we went through scrutiny, not only personal scrutiny, but also regulatory scrutiny with the PPM that we wrote and the legal opinion that was submitted that was given to us that lawyers wrote on Hex. As we
In
look at all,
response to the SEC letter you're talking about?
no, there was a legal opinion that was wrote before when Hex was launching by lawyers, and this legal opinion was wrote by 2 different lawyers that state that Hex is not a security, and there's a lot of different tests that it passes. One being the Hinman, the other being the Howey and why it passes these. And it's written very well. So we submitted that along with all of our scrutiny, which was basically our KYC, and then our PPM, which is our operating agreement of the Hex Investment Trust. So when we did that, we started to operate the Hex Investment Trust to accredited investors. It's a private offering only. It's not a public offering like
I see.
the Bitcoin Trust, but it has the potential to do that after it meets certain criteria.
Right.
So it functions the same way. In fact, the same lawyers that wrote the Grayscale Trust also helped to put ours together.
Oh, wow.
So we had to educate them because they knew Bitcoin, they didn't know Hex. So we had to teach them about Hex and T-shares and all these kinds of things. But in doing so, we found that we have a very good case to go to the SEC and ask them to deem Hex not a security, in fact. Because of all these things, because of the Hex Investment Trust existing, and because of the legal opinion, and because of them actually subpoenaing, by sending the subpoena out and it being public information, it FUDs all the Hexagon's bags, right? So they're kind of in violation of us. So they're letting us function, the Hex Investment Trust function. They've got the legal opinion. They understand what everybody has said about Hex already. Yet
Right.
they've sent this scare tactic out with a broad brush, and it could be affecting all of us. So
Yeah.
maybe there's countersuit here, and not so much countersuit to go after them, but hey, at least write a declaration saying that. And I don't know if the court writes that declaration or the SEC writes that declaration or how that's done. But the statements have been made, and I don't know exactly how
Yeah.
they function, but they've been made.
Yep.
But
Yep.
that's
Now
what we're going for.
I understand now. It just sucks, man, because all this shit can take so much fucking time. You know, we're gonna be like another fucking XRP. Fuck. Hopefully,
You know
price
what?
don't go down too much.
And I get that.
Oh my
But
god.
let's look at the timeline here. So let's just say it's a year or two from now, and we're in another bull run,
Right.
and
It could
regulation
work
is
out.
coming.
It could.
Yeah, and regulation is coming. You know, regulation, maybe it
Yeah.
takes them 2 or 3 years to get their heads out of their asses and put regulations in place.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
if we've already got this declaration 2 or 3 years from now, when they do start to bring heavy regulation, maybe we avoid that scrutiny.
Maybe.
So
Hopefully.
that's what we're seeing, and
Yeah.
we're trying to get in front of. So that's the long answer to it.
Got it.
And
Got it.
so appreciate your question.
Yeah, thanks. Just needed a little clarity what was going on. You know, I seen a few things, seen a couple of videos, seen like some I don't know. I forgot to tweet. I'm high right now, by the way, but just anyway, thanks y'all. Another Hexagon here hanging out in Hawaii. Talk to you guys later.
Peace out.
Peace.
Right on, man.
Hey,
Right on.
hey,
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
RG3, do you
Hey,
think there's any way I could get a copy of that legal opinion?
I can't pass that around. We were asked not to. I'm sorry about that, man.
Oh, okay. That sucks,
Um,
man. Because I'm
I,
like,
I know I've been asked not to disseminate it. It's
So where did that come from?
I think that it was wrote for Hex, but in the early days, and I don't know who actually had it taken care of, but it does exist, and it's called the Illegal Opinion Memorandum Hex. So it's the legal opinion on why Hex is not a security. Hold on, Famous had his hand up. I don't. Famous, go ahead. I'm sorry, bud.
Oh, geez, what was I going to say? I was just going to say, I really think this is going to be all right, guys. I really do. I think, you know, I've worked with government agencies a lot before on many things, and, you know, they're going to have a lot of things to go look into in crypto. And while this maybe on the surface looks like a good hunting ground for them to find something, I think they're not going to find anything interesting. For those of us that have been here since 2018, listening to Richard, he anticipated all this stuff. He started talking about the Howie right at the start. He definitely got very good advice before he started Hex. We're going to be absolutely fine. A few of you
And
may get a $5,000 fine or something like that, but really it's not a big deal, and you know everything's going to be okay. We'll move on and we'll be fine.
And,
So don't
and one
worry
of
too
the
much.
things to add on to that, a little uh, vote of confidence on that is that what we've heard is that the SEC is looking for the layover, for the sacrificial lamb, for the person who gives up all the information, who will cooperate, who gives up information, but those who become skunks, they leave alone. Those that are fights, they don't want to get into them. They tend to not, unless they really want to go after something for a reason. If there's no reason there, and there's a lot of different litigation against the reasons that they're trying to produce, then they kind of leave it alone. Is what we've heard. So I think that's, with the strong case that we have, I think that we've got a good case and a good chance that they're not going to want to go after Hex as a security type.
One more thing, with FTX, Celsius, Voyager, and God knows how many other, things that, involve fraud and, incredibly misleading, irresponsible management, negligence. They've got lots of choices. And I think what they're going to find is that this isn't very interesting for them, and that they'll just move right along and they'll tell whoever sent that complaint in. We did it. We've done a little investigation. We haven't really found anything interesting. See you, and that's going to be it. That's how this is going to play out, guys. So don't worry too much about it. Having said that, I still think this is great. We should absolutely, try to do this thing that you're talking about, RG3, right? And have a defense fund for the community and things like that, advocacy of sorts. I think that's a really good idea. Not even beyond the scope of this SEC thing, if it's legal, for us to have to use it in ways like that. I think that sounds like a nice thing to have as well. But yeah, I also just don't worry about this at all. I really don't.
Right on. Execute. You got your hand up there.
Yeah, I was just wondering if
Yo,
go to court, why don't you just do the settlement instead of trying to argue for it?
that means you're guilty. Fuck that shit. Fight it.
There's no settlement. There's no court case. They're literally just requesting information right now, and it's not even court ordered request for information. It's an SEC request for information. If you don't comply with the request, and they really feel or have case that they need that information, they would have to go to a court of law to get you to reveal that information. And then at that point, if you don't comply, then the courts can come after you to have you give that information. But at this point, it literally is just an inquiry from the SEC. It's not any type of settlement. There's no type of court case. There's nothing there yet.
Yeah, I just remember with the Tezos case, they kind of just settled it. I think it was 21 million total.
Yeah. Once it turns into a case, then that's what can happen. There's some people trying to get up. Any of you who aren't speaking that want to give up your slots, there's some people that want to come up. Go ahead, Corey.
So I think it's fundamental for projects to have a war chest, and the reason why is specifically this: when you have a regulatory sphere, when you have regulations coming in, and you have compliance structures being made, this is not going to be the last time, in my opinion, that something like this is going to happen from a ubiquitous, and not even just a ubiquitous standpoint throughout crypto, but from an isolated standpoint for, excuse me, different cryptocurrency projects. So I personally believe that having this type of war chest is crucial for the future of blockchain, especially with probably further, I dare say, crackdowns occurring, unjustifiable crackdowns that are going to occur against everywhere from proof of work to proof of stake blockchains throughout the world. You have different jurisdictions that look at cryptocurrencies from a different standpoint. I mean, Belgium, I believe, just came out and said that Bitcoin and ETH aren't securities. That I don't believe that's going to be a ubiquitous notion. So I think that a war chest is absolutely necessary for the expansion of this community. And it also shows something, not even just from a financial standpoint, but it shows that the Hex community can create something, can create unity through a just cause that many other communities that I believe in the cryptocurrency sphere could not be able to do. And it could kind of nullify any notion that the hex community isn't unified, that there is schisms from an outward perspective. So I think there's more of a philosophical reason to do this from a social standpoint, not even just the economic means for future legislative issues that may come to pass. So I
I
look at it.
agree 100%. It shows the community development and contribution and involvement. Exactly what a crypto needs to have is that type of involvement, and it proofs it. So yes, I agree. This is one of the things, other than all the stuff that we've done already, this is one of those things that puts us on the legislative stage, so to speak, and puts us as doing something significant for the product of Hex that Richard couldn't do himself or shouldn't have to do himself. It's something that the community can do, which proofs us as a community, as a real crypto community. Because I will keep saying it. I think Hex is the only true, real crypto community because we have Richard in front of us and Hex behind us. That puts us in a very unique position out here in this space. Hey, Gary, you got your hand up. You got something to say?
Yeah, just real quick is if you look at the value proposition of Bitcoin or the value proposition of apples or the value proposition of oranges, those things can get out into the wild and then they can have a market value. And if you think of Hex as the same sort of thing, as something that generates yield based on people valuing it, then I think it's on great ground as far as the United States when it comes to SEC, or is it a commodity or is it a security kind of arguments. Another comment that Corey had said was, there's different societies or jurisdictions or nations or governments that will look at the same thing in different ways. So is an apple or an orange a security? That just means that those apples and oranges, if they're deemed by that society or that government as, the citizenry can't participate, then it means that those things grow in other areas on the planet. There's 8 billion people out here. And, what I had said earlier was in the United States, there may be this judgment or actually these entities that have a mandate to protect quote unquote investors or naive investors or people that are not as current with what is risk in buying an apple or an orange or a stock or a bond or any other thing that has some speculative value in the future. Like other people are going to buy it from you for some profit margin. So that's what their mandate is. And I think that this is a valiant effort. I think that the biggest issue that had been commented on earlier and by others inside of Hex or outside of Hex has been transparency. If there is transparency, if there is an agency, if we're dealing with legacy and lawyers like that, then transparency on funding and where that goes or how it's utilized, I think that that's the biggest thing that people want. And again, there's a lot of people that will have benefit from apples or oranges maybe down the road, regardless of whether they're declared a security or not. It's the same sort of thing in my mind.
Fella, yeah, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I
Hi.
want to give RG3 a word of appreciation for the work he's doing and the passion. What I was going to ask is the same of Gary that he was talking right about now. How much of the Mexican community or holders are based in the U.S. and how will the SEC decision or this letter affect people that are not living in the U.S.?
I'm not sure I understand your question. How many people will this affect if we get some type of declaration? Is that what you're asking? That are outside of the U.S.?
Yes, and if you have an idea of how many holders of X are based in the U.S., like percentage-wise.
I couldn't tell you that. I know that there are a large percentage of the Hexicans are probably the holders in the U.S. I know that Europe has a lot also. Not sure what the ratios are. I'm not a numbers guy, but here's what I can tell you on a macro level, what I think can happen here. If we were to get something like this, it would be very favorable to the hex holders in the U.S. Because then our currency, our crypto, I guess, would be deemed not a security, and then maybe placed under the rules or the auspices of the CFTC versus the SEC, which would change the game for all of us as far as how it's regulated and whatnot. Not sure if that will happen or what, but oftentimes as the law goes, as the U.S. goes in securities law, so goes the rest of the world. And that's not in every case. I'm not saying that everybody listens to the U.S. and does what the U.S. does, but a lot of times it does hold weight around the globe. So indirectly, it could affect hex holders outside of the U.S. But I don't think it's going to affect hex holders either way. Those of us who are holding it, we're still going to see our pumps and our dumps and our rises and falls, all that good stuff. But this would give us more legs underneath us and give us more ability to onboard and bring more to the community of crypto and bring more people if we did have something like this, and it sent crypto interaction, because they haven't done things like this. This is kind of unprecedented for them to do something like this for a crypto. And if we were to get something like this, we would start setting precedent. This is that important. This isn't just something that they've given to everybody else and we want it too. This is new, guys. This is something that we're seeking, and we could change crypto because of it. So it's really important. It really is important, and its ripple effect will go throughout the world. I don't know how much of an effect it will have, but it will have an effect. Maybe not a direct one. Yeah, fame.
Corey, you were ahead of me, mate.
No, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I just want to say, do you know what type of positive precedent this would make for the Hex community from all of those who stand against this protocol and prove every single individual? Do you guys remember when the SEC the FUD first came out, and every single furu and their mother came out and basically utilized it for content purposes? Can you imagine if we were able as a community? Now, Richard tends to prove a lot of influencers, and I say that word very lightly, influencer, wrong consistently. Can you imagine what the positive ripple effects it could be for the Hex community if we were able to prove to these influencers and to ourselves that everything that people have said to try to FUD us is wrong, and they made it out that we're weak when we're able to perpetuate a notion of strength in a time of economic hopelessness, not just from a crypto standpoint, but from a macroeconomic standpoint? I think that personally, this could set the stage for real for real change in the way that we are perceived, that we are one of the few projects that were able to are able to stand up against this entity that it seems like cryptocurrency and blockchain projects are petrified of. And we're one of the few communities that actually have the fortitude to stand up and say, no, you're not going to bully us. We have the financial means to back that end as well.
Yes. Now, I don't want to seek validation, but it would be nice to have that feather in our cap. Red had her, Red had her hand up before, so go ahead,
Oh,
Red.
yeah. Hi again. So, just so a couple of quick questions. The difference between this declarative statement versus, you know, what we believe to be, investigations that are already occurring. What is the difference between those two actions that are currently happening?
So the investigations made us look at some things. As I was looking at the legal opinion and the subpoenas, I saw that I looked at it and said, well, we really have a lot of ground to stand on here, and we should be the ones going to them and asking them for validation. And they're the ones that should be answering us, is the way I saw it. And so it kind of brought this up. And Gary here has some very good connections with some people that have handled these types of situations and actually won and had these things, these declarations made. So that's why we went after that. Again, there is no legal action against any of the entities or personal hexagons that have received these subpoenas. They are from the SEC. They've just inquiries, and they're asking for information so that they can conduct an investigation. It has absolutely nothing to do with any. It is not a court-ordered subpoena. I want everybody to understand. This is just coming from the SEC. They are fishing. They're asking for information, and whoever will give that to them. And whether or not somebody gives that information or not is up to them. And the SEC will pursue that however they want to. But in order for them to get a court-ordered subpoena, they're going to have to go and ask for some very specific information versus the broad brush that they put into these subpoenas. They're asking for an awful lot of information. So for anybody who's giving that up, they're doing that willingly, voluntarily, and it's not being court-ordered. And there is no under court order at this point.
So that's not a subpoena then, right?
Not in the technical sense. They're calling it a subpoena, but it's not a court-ordered subpoena. It's an SEC inquiry.
But I understand loosely. The California Coastal Commission is a quasi-government entity who has the ability to take legal, as an example, has the ability to take legal action. But again, it's a quasi-government entity. It's complicated, but I had some experience with that in a former life. Okay, so presently they're called subpoenas, but they're from the SEC versus, say, the federal court system, correct?
Exactly. And the SEC can only bring civil case.
Got it. And so this declarative statement is separate from whatever that investigation is? Is that?
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
And then how does this wrap into other things, like famously, obviously, the XRP situation that's been in, litigation for years?
Yes. So it's perfect opportunity now because of what's happening to the SEC. So there is a lot of mud on their face from this whole FTX thing. This is deep as far as the people that are involved, from SEC personnel themselves all the way to the highest levels, to banksters, to politicians, to crypto exchanges. It's deep, and they've got egg on their face. And they were coming after all of us. Mr. Freed was literally, and I was screaming about this 6 months ago, he was literally working on legislation to stop DeFi. They wanted to stop DeFi, and that's what he was doing. That's why he was donating. That's why he was bringing. When I went to Washington, D.C., I was telling everybody, they're lobbying against us, guys. These guys with this money, these exchanges. I told everybody, they're coming after us. They're coming after DeFi. We need to get together. We need to put lobby powers together. We need to get money into this because they're coming after DeFi, and that's what they were doing, but they got caught. Their whole house of cards fell before they can get any legislation taken care of. And now they're all sitting there with egg on their face. So this is a perfect opportunity for us to show them what good crypto is, and to show them that there's a better way. That DeFi is not the devil that the devil was telling you was the devil. We are the good people. Richard is the good people. There is a contrast between Mr. SBF and Richard Hart. You look at SBF, and he looks like the innocent, non-combative guy that couldn't hurt a fly. And then you look at Richard, and you think that's the guy that's going to scam you. And in all actuality, it was completely opposite. That guy ran off with everybody's money. Everybody's hurt. All of crypto is just about, and it's going to get deeper. It's going to get worse. More is going to fall. And Richard was the one speaking the truth all the time. So it's the perfect opportunity for us to go in there and get some wins. I think that the way things look, Mr. Gensler is going to be gone. I don't think he's going to be in charge of the SEC for very long after the beginning of the year. And that's going to leave vacancy. That's going to leave change. That's going to leave a void. And for us to go in and start doing what we're doing now, I think is the perfect opportunity for us to be doing so. So that's a long answer. I think famous Corey, I'm sorry, I didn't see who put their hand up first.
I think it was me. I'll just kind of weigh in from an investment standpoint, because that's my world. That's where I come from on this. I think in a lot of ways, what's happening right now really isn't that bad. It's a preliminary thing where they're gathering information. So nothing really all that bad is probably coming. Most likely nothing of any material nature is coming. Most likely nothing actually happens. So I would say that's the first thing. The second thing is the market here for Hex is already seems to be pricing in some sort of protracted, terrible war with the SEC, which is probably not coming. So I actually say there's probably some upside. But even if the worst thing did happen, I think in a way we'll be fine. I would buy that dip, and the reason is because we're already a DeFi native crypto anyway. We're not like XRP. We don't really need those fiat on ramps. So as much as those other guys do. We all know how to use MetaMask. We all know how to buy a ETH and then get to Hex through Uniswap or other ways. So like in a way, it's sort of minimal impact. And I say this again, the SEC and all the authorities have such good stuff to pick from right now, like things like Celsius, where there's just criminal negligence, probably fraud, all sorts of extra illegal stuff. There's a Celsius token as well, if you want to talk about a security. There's FTT, and SBX and all that stuff. They really need to go after the easy wins. And I don't think there's a case here. I don't think there's an easy win for them. Like I said, there may be one or two people that maybe said the wrong thing on YouTube, guaranteeing or promising things, but like that's fine. Those people are going to pay like $1,000 fine, and they're going to move on with their lives. So I really, 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 really want to point out to you guys that I think the community is probably making a mountain out of a molehill with this thing, in my opinion. And I'll also say, Corey alluded to this XRP thing earlier, and they didn't beat out an all-time high this bull market because of that. Well, I would say yes, the SEC thing didn't help them, but in reality, they were just a massive, massive bubble in 2017, and they were stupidly overpriced. And that's why they also that's the main reason why they didn't get there. So yeah, I'm not too worried, guys. And I have been called by Richard as the most dedicated fudster in Hex history. So I'm not some moon boy. Okay, so I don't think this is a big deal, right?
And I think, and again, that's not what this conversation was actually supposed to be about. Was all those other subpoenas? This is about something completely different. But I believe you to be right. I think that there's kind of not a big deal here. But on our side of it, our complaint, our request, I think it's a big deal. And I think that we've got something here. And I think that the SEC is going to lose their case against XRP. That's what I think is happening right now. I think that they overreached. I think they made some mistakes, and I think there's clerical errors in their requests, and they're going to end up losing that case against XRP on technicalities.
Famous, you brought up something that was a really good point that I was actually going to bring up. You brought up YouTube. I want to say this to all new streamers because I have people asking me a lot of questions in DMs, and some of them are in here that want to know how to go about streaming the right.
We're doing, which I think it's the latter, frankly.
Yeah, and that's so that they can be reactive and look like the heroes versus being proactive, learning the space, understanding what it needs, and going and helping it versus, well, we'll just sit here as a regulatory body and just when something really blows up, we'll go in and clean up and make it look like we did something. And then we'll let legislators come in and make laws that will benefit the people that are putting monies in their coffers. And that's almost what happened to us. So that's why I think that it is so important for us right now to get out in front of this, because this community of all communities is the perfect community to go out and educate. Now, if we would stop bickering and fighting amongst each other and go out as a unified front and speak Richard's message to the masses, we would start to get ground. We would start to be the authorities in crypto versus all these other clowns who have been paid by these very same entities that have screwed them all. They are literally right now out there talking about SBF and FTX like it's a bad thing, when just months ago, every single last one of them were shilling their wares. We're allowing them interviews. We're talking praises to them. And now all of a sudden, they're the boogeyman. Those people were wrong and they shouldn't be the voices. They've got millions of followers, hundreds of thousands of followers. I've got a YouTube channel with 10,000 followers. That's it. And people won't listen to guys who are trying to good message in crypto. No, don't listen to that. Those old fools. Those are Richard Hart freaking, plebs. They're the guys that are all over Richard's ass. Forget those guys. Don't listen to them, but all these other guys are out here wrecking people. And it's our message. We are the ones that need to be out there in a unified front, speaking to the world, telling everybody in crypto, we've got a better way. We were right. Let us show you. And until we do that, and until we start doing things like this with the SEC, we're just going to play second fiddle again. So we've got to get out there and do this.
Yeah, and I mean, okay, so there's some fighting, sure, but that happens